Chapter 152. After madly laughing, Zhao Fu's cold gaze fell on the incoming people, and he slowly said in a domineering, condescending, and cruel tone, Now, I bestow upon you the fate of death." Suddenly, Zhao Fu picked up the sky demon's sword and slashed at his palm. Bright red blood with a hint of gold flowed out of the wound, and the blood stained the sword. Sensing the king's blood, the sky demon's sword gave off an excited cry and gave off an even more evil aura than before. Pooh! Zhao Fu stabbed the sword into the ground, and countless traces of jet-black, demonic qi flowed out of the sword and flooded into the ground. The ground seemed to be dyed black, and in just an instant, a 1,000-meter wide black image appeared, looking like a black hole. Zhao Fu coldly laughed as he looked at the flood of people charging at him. He raised his bleeding palm and lightly yelled, "King's profoundness, demon domain, 10,000 burials." Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a black light shot out from Zhao Fu's palm, forming a demonic image in front of Zhao Fu's palm. Suddenly, a formless energy spread out, as if a forbidden power had been unleashed. Black spikes that were over 20 meters long shot out of the ground with immense force without any warning. Qi, qi, qi. The black spikes pierced through people's bodies and carried their corpses 20 meters into the air. The black spikes covered the surrounding 1,000 meters, and the 1,500 or so people at the very front were all pierced through the air. Their expressions were filled with pain, savageness, and terror, and blood slowly dripped down from the air like a blood-red rain. The surroundings fell silent, and the scene before them became a blood-red hell. This terrifying scene caused the countless greedy people to wake up, and their bodies instinctively stopped. Perhaps it was because of their terror that they couldn't even take a single step forward. Zhao Fu used his king's power to staunch the bleeding, and he pulled out the sky demon's sword from the ground. All of the black spikes retracted, and the blackness on the ground receded. Corpses fell from the sky and landed on the ground, creating a 1,000-meter wide space in the middle of the sea of people. This skill had just appeared in his mind. Zhao Fu's king profession was a growth profession that surpassed the soldier profession. At the beginning, there were no skills, and everything had to be created by Zhao Fu. This king's profoundness, demon domain, 10,000 burial was the first skill that Zhao Fu had created. However, this skill relied on the Sky Demon Sword's Sky Demon Domain. Without the Sky Demon Sword, Zhao Fu would not be able to use this skill. The blood on the ground was controlled by a formless energy and gathered towards the Sky Demon Sword before being devoured by it. The Sky Demon within the sword excitedly laughed. "Kill! Kill! Kill! Master, kill them all!" After the Sky Demon's sword devoured the blood, it sent a portion of it into Zhao Fu's body to recover the power that Zhao Fu had used up after using the king's profoundness. Zhao Fu pulled the sword out of the ground and pointed it at the crowd 1,000 meters away as he said mockingly and murderously, "What? Keep coming." This provocation caused the people surrounding Zhao Fu to look at each other, but none of them dared to take a single step forward. "He's holding a sky demon." At that moment, some people suddenly noticed the black sword in Zhao Fu's hand. It had a demon pattern on it, and it gave off a cold, murderous, and evil aura. "What? Sky demon?" Hearing this shout, countless people's gazes fell on the sword in Zhao Fu's hand. Sky Demon was the most famous sword in the Heaven Awakened world, and even though the 10,000 Flower Festival had long since passed, the sword on the legendary rankings was still publicly acknowledged as the most powerful sword in the Heaven Awakened world. Back then, when Sky Demon had disappeared, it had caused quite a stir. None of them had expected Sky Demon to appear again, and it was even obtained by a player. They were filled with shock and confusion as to just who this black-cloaked figure was. This news caused the general to feel quite shocked. At first, he didn't believe it, but after seeing the sword in Zhao Fu's hand, he confirmed that it was indeed Sky Demon. Back then, all of the legendary rankings equipment was listed in the exchange stone steel, and anyone could check it out. As such, almost everyone knew what Sky Demon looked like, as it was the #1 weapon on the legendary rankings. At that moment, the guard on the wall came down and hurried over to the general, asking, "Sir, what do we do now?" The general didn't know why Heavenstone City had put a bounty on this person's head, but that wasn't important anymore. He could sense how serious this matter was, and if he allowed Zhao Fu to escape, it would be like releasing a tiger back into the mountains. As such, he yelled, "Kill him at all costs." "Yes, sir." The 4,000 or so guards obeyed and ferociously rushed toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu looked at the incoming guards. If they were a group of players with weak cultivations, Zhao Fu wouldn't have feared them at all. However, they were all soldiers with Stage 1 cultivation and wore blue-grade equipment. What was more important was that this was someone else's home, and there was a large group of soldiers rushing over. As such, Zhao Fu had no choice but to once again choose to escape. Seeing this, the people around him hesitated. On one hand, the benefits of killing Zhao Fu were simply too great. Not only would they be able to obtain 100,000 gold coins, but they would also be able to obtain Sky Demon. On the other hand, Zhao Fu's 10,000 burial had left a massive shadow in their hearts. Seeing this, Zhao Fu didn't show any mercy and directly used Sky Demon Slash. A massive sword light slashed out, killing countless people and carving out a path of blood. This time, some people were completely scared out of their wits and chose to retreat, but many people were unwilling to give up and chased after Zhao Fu with their weapons. Zhao Fu was surrounded by countless people, and it was impossible to kill them all. After killing this group, another group would rush up, and the 4,000 guards were about to rush up. If he was held back by them, it would be impossible for him to escape. Suddenly, Zhao Fu threw out a round pearl, which gave off a faint white light. It immediately turned into a 2-meter-tall monkey covered with black fur and a tuft of white fur on its chest. It had a human face and 2 tails, and it was the White Fur Monkey King. Zhao Fu looked at the White Fur Monkey King and said, "The White Fur Monkey King." Roar! As soon as the white-furred Monkey King appeared, it gave off a massive roar, causing a formless and powerful sound wave to spread out. Everyone within 20 meters had their heads explode, and those outside 20 meters bled from their 7 orifices and died. Those outside 100 meters were sent flying by the sound wave, and those outside 1,000 meters couldn't help but cover their ears. Zhao Fu used this opportunity to jump out of the crowd, but at that moment, an arrow flashed through the air and pierced through the white-furred Monkey King's body. The white-furred Monkey King's body immediately collapsed, turning into motes of light and dissipating. After piercing through the white-furred Monkey King's body, the arrow didn't stop and continued toward Zhao Fu like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 153. As the arrow flew over, Zhao Fu, who was running away, was given a big fright. His hair stood on end, and he turned to look at the terrifying arrow. He raised his sword and flicked it upwards. The arrow was flicked away and exploded in the air, creating a shockwave that was not small at all. At that moment, a figure appeared by Zhao Fu's side, holding a saber with both hands. The saber gave off a shocking saber light as it slashed toward Zhao Fu. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out as sparks flew. Zhao Fu circulated his king's power and used his sword to block the saber. However, at that moment, Zhao Fu was given a big fright and retreated a few steps, causing his spear to miss. Zhao Fu looked at the 3 people in front of him seriously. One was a valiant-looking middle-aged man holding a saber. He was Yu Limping, one of Heavenstone City's 3 great generals. The other was a handsome-looking young man holding a violet bow. He was Ancient Wind, the 2nd of Heavenstone City's 3 great generals. The final person was a big man holding a golden spear. He was Lu Sheng, the 3rd of Heavenstone City's 3 great generals. The arrival of Heavenstone City's 3 great generals caused the guards and soldiers to feel quite excited. With their 3 experts here, taking down Zhao Fu would not be a problem at all. Seeing the 3 of them arrive, the surrounding players tactfully retreated 100 meters away. As members of Heavenstone City, they knew how powerful these 3 great generals were, and they understood that the following battle was not something they could participate in. However, since they wanted to take advantage of the situation, they did not retreat too far away. Seeing these three people, Zhao Fu's expression became quite serious. If Zhao Fu was facing a single great general, he definitely would not be at a disadvantage. However, if the three of them attacked together, it would be impossible for Zhao Fu to defeat them. As such, Zhao Fu could only run. He waved his hand, sending out a wave of sword light as he pretended to attack. However, in the next moment, he immediately turned and ran. Of course, Zhao Fu's actions could not be hidden from the three experienced battle generals. Gufeng coldly smiled as he drew his bow, and an arrow containing terrifying power shot out like a ray of light. In an instant, the arrow flew behind Zhao Fu. It was only a few inches away from Zhao Fu. Just as it was about to hit Zhao Fu suddenly twisted his body. The arrow missed and hit the ground in front of Zhao Fu. Bang! The arrow brought with it a terrifying force as it shot into the ground. The hard ground was unable to withstand the force, and a 5-meter-wide crater appeared. Just as Zhao Fu dodged this arrow, Limping once again raised his saber and ferociously slashed at him. Zhao Fu could only use his sword to parry, but the other Lu Shang's spear stabbed towards Zhao Fu's chest. Zhao Fu had no choice but to once again dodge and unleash a large amount of his king's power. Following this, the four of them started an intense battle. As they fought, sword lights and saber lights shot everywhere, exploding out with powerful auras like a wild gale. The three great generals worked together incredibly well, and Zhao Fu was completely suppressed. Seeing these three powerful great generals, the city guards felt their blood boil. Suddenly, Zhao Fu had just blocked Yu Linping's attack, and just as he was about to counterattack, another arrow shot towards him. Zhao Fu could only tilt his head to the side. This arrow flew past Zhao Fu's head, and the sharp arrow light was like a sharp blade. As it flew past, a gash appeared on Zhao Fu's hood, and a few strands of his black hair fell off. A gash appeared on his face, for which a trace of blood slowly flowed out. Feeling the pain on his face, Zhao Fu was infuriated, and he exploded out with a large amount of King's power, causing the Sky Demon Sword to give off a shocking sword light and give off a demonic sound as it ferociously slashed out with destructive power. Facing this ferocious attack, Yu Linping loudly roared and exploded out with a powerful aura. Countless traces of golden aura flowed out of his body, forming a golden aura flame around him. Boom! The sword and saber clashed, resulting in a massive explosion and a powerful shockwave that rippled out, causing the ground to crack. Scree! At that moment, Ancient Wind also used his full strength and shot out an arrow. This arrow gave off a brilliant violet light and formed a violet rock that ferociously spread its wings and flew toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu gritted his teeth and once again released a large amount of King's power, causing a semicircular black energy barrier to appear beside Zhao Fu's body. Bang! The violet rock gave off ferocious and terrifying power as it ferociously smashed against the black dragon inscription barrier, resulting in a massive explosion. Crack! 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 Cracks started to appear on Zhao Fu's black dragon inscription barrier like a mirror. Dang! A clear sound rang out as the violet rock disappeared, and an arrow pierced through the densest part of the barrier, stabbing into Zhao Fu's chest. Chi! Zhao Fu felt a pain in his chest, and he coughed up a large mouthful of blood. At that moment, Lu Shang grasped this opportunity and swept out with his spear, shattering the black dragon inscription barrier. The spear then slammed into Zhao Fu's body, sending Zhao Fu flying back 20 or so meters before crashing to the ground. The guards all cheered. The three great generals were incredibly powerful, and it was almost certain that they would be able to take down Zhao Fu. It seemed that Zhao Fu would have no chance of escaping. Many of the surrounding players inwardly sighed. It seemed that they wouldn't have any more chances. However, this black-cloaked figure was quite powerful, and even though he would definitely lose against the three great generals, he would definitely become famous after this battle. Yu Linping's expression was cold as he prepared to walk over and capture Zhao Fu. The surroundings fell silent, and everyone watched as Yu Linping walked up and killed Zhao Fu. At that moment, Zhao Fu, who had fallen to the ground, wiped the blood from his mouth and slowly stood up. He raised his head and coldly looked at the three people. In that instant, his gaze became filled with eerie, killing intent, and his eyes became blood red. "Do you really think that I am afraid of you?" Zhao Fu roared as he raised the sky demon sword high into the air and pointed it towards the sky. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out, shaking the clouds as a monstrous killing intent descended. Countless people were given a big fright as they felt an incredibly terrifying power descend. Both their bodies and souls instinctively trembled, and the three great generals stared at this scene in shock. The sky instantly became blood red, and countless rays of blood-red light descended from the sky. Zhao Fu looked up and bathed in the blood-red light, and his black cloak was ripped to shreds, revealing Zhao Fu's true appearance. He had a delicate and handsome face, and his black hair, which reached his waist, fluttered without any wind. He was dressed in black, and his blood-red eyes were filled with killing intent. Chapter 154. Before, Zhao Fu had only wanted to escape, and he didn't want to use his nation armament. However, these people were closing in on him, and the chain of events caused Zhao Fu to lose control of his emotions. Zhao Fu was a very rational person, but if he lost control of his emotions, it meant that he would go berserk. Now, Zhao Fu stood there with his sword in hand, giving off a heaven-toppling aura of killing and conquering. He looked like a world-destroying demon god, and he was in a berserk state. The sky demon in the sword had never thought that Zhao Fu's true strength would be so monstrous. This was because Zhao Fu was no longer as weak as he had been before. Now, he was using his nation armament as a king, and his 12 nation armaments had long since become level 2 nation armaments. When Zhao Fu had used a level 1 nation armament to fight against the mysterious skeleton, the power it had released was already quite terrifying, let alone a level 2 nation armament, as well as a king who specialized in using nation armaments. Even the arrogant and powerful sky demon couldn't help but shrink back into the sword, not daring to make a sound. It was afraid that if Zhao Fu was unhappy, he would destroy it. Zhao Fu's gaze, which was filled with killing intent, once again fell on the three generals, causing a chill to run through their hearts. Zhao Fu's lips curled up into a trace of an evil smile. Suddenly, in that instant, Zhao Fu's body suddenly appeared in front of Yu Linping. He seemed to slowly raise the sky demon sword, but in actuality, he was incredibly fast. Boom! As Zhao Fu's sword slashed down, even though Yu Linping exploded out with all of his strength and blocked with all of his might, he was still sent flying hundreds of meters by Zhao Fu. Yu Linping crashed into Heavenstone City's incredibly sturdy city walls, and a 100-meter-long and 10-meter-deep gash appeared on the ground. Pooh! Yu Linping crashed into a wall that was dozens of meters tall, and he coughed up a large mouthful of blood. His chest was a bloody mess, and the wall had also caved in. Yu Linping's entire body was embedded in the wall, and he looked like he was on his last breath. With just a single strike, one of Heavenstone City's 3 great generals had been heavily injured. This scene sent waves of shock through the hearts of the countless players surrounding the area. At the same time, their bodies and souls were filled with fear, and they wanted to quickly leave this place. After all, everyone knew that if they didn't leave now, a bloody massacre would ensue. That Black Cloak Man's power was so great that it made people's hair stand on end. He was like a god, and he wasn't an existence that ordinary humans could fight against. All the players could only run while Zhao Fu's attention wasn't on them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to escape. The people from Heavenstone City were completely dumbfounded, and their previous expressions of joy and confidence were now extremely grave and even a trace of fear. At this time, Zhao Fu slowly turned his head. His scarlet eyes were like two gems, emitting a terrifying light. In the next second, Zhao Fu was like a black ray of light as he rushed towards Ancient Wind, who was holding his violet bow. Ancient Wind's expression was quite serious as he drew his bow and shot out a sharp arrow. This arrow gave off a violet light and turned into a large rock that shot toward Zhao Fu. The two of them quickly intertwined, and facing the arrow that had injured him, Zhao Fu swung his sword. A black arc of light flashed out, splitting the rock and the arrow in half. Ancient Wind immediately drew his bow again. However, Zhao Fu's body suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, Gu Feng was given a big fright and cold sweat covered his body because a terrifying figure had appeared behind him. That figure's blood-red eyes danced with a bloodthirsty, blood-red light. Pooh! Zhao Fu slashed down with his sword, causing blood to spurt everywhere. Ancient Wind's expression was one of shock as he powerlessly half-knelt before falling to the ground, dead. There was a gash on his back that ran from his left shoulder to the right side of his waist. This gash was incredibly deep, and it almost split Ancient Wind's corpse in half. One of Heavenstone City's 3 great generals, Ancient Wind, had died. Ancient Wind's death caused Lu Sheng to feel incredibly furious. The 3 of them had been Heavenstone City's great generals for many years, and they were incredibly close friends. Now, Ancient Wind had died. Lu Sheng furiously gripped his golden spear and rushed at Zhao Fu. Seeing Lu Sheng rush over, Zhao Fu did not move at all. Lu Sheng had already reached Zhao Fu, and his golden spear was as fast as lightning as he stabbed towards Zhao Fu's chest. Just as the golden spear was about to stab into Zhao Fu's chest, Zhao Fu condescendingly laughed and grabbed the golden spear. Lu Sheng was given a big fright and immediately pulled back his golden spear. However, he was shocked to find that the golden spear did not budge at all. In the next second, Lu Sheng realized something and hurriedly let go, but it was already too late. Zhao Fu raised the sky demon sword and chopped off Lu Sheng's arms, causing blood to spurt out. Lu Sheng howled in pain and quickly retreated. Zhao Fu rushed forwards, and just as he was about to finish off Lu Sheng with a single strike, the thousands of city guards could no longer watch on. Thousands of arrows flew towards Zhao Fu. A cold light flashed in Zhao Fu's eyes, and a massive aura of killing and conquering formed a formless wall, knocking back the thousands of arrows. Now, Zhao Fu's gaze once again fell on the thousands of city guards. Right now, Zhao Fu has gone completely berserk, and he just wants to kill everyone who tries to stop him. Zhao Fu turned into a black blur as he rushed towards the thousands of city guards. In an instant, Zhao Fu arrived in front of the shield bearers and vigorously slashed out with his sword. Clang! A massive sound of metal clashing could be heard as the shield bearers' shields and bodies were split in two. Soon, Zhao Fu broke through their defenses and entered their ranks, slaughtering them one strike at a time. However, Zhao Fu was not satisfied with how quickly he was killing them, and a cruel smile appeared on his face as he slowly raised the sky demon's sword and heavily slashed it against the ground. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a black sword light ferociously exploded out with Zhao Fu at the center. The power from the explosion was enough to destroy everything, and the shockwave quickly spread out in all directions, forming a black semicircular barrier around him. The entire ground seemed to tremble and rumble as if there was an earthquake. Even people who were 10 kilometers away could feel the tremors. In the end, when the dust settled, a 1,000-meter wide and 100-meter deep crater had appeared in the ground. Less than 10% of the thousands of city guards had died. This scene caused the players who hadn't run very far to feel as if their souls were going to jump out of their bodies. They desperately ran because they knew that they were most likely Zhao Fu's next targets. Indeed, Zhao Fu didn't plan on letting them off. However, Zhao Fu's blood-red eyes were filled with bloodlust as he looked at Lu Sheng's severed arms. He would kill him first. By now, Lu Sheng had already used his cultivation power to staunch the blood from his severed arms. Seeing Zhao Fu's blood-red eyes look at him, Lu Sheng did not hesitate to turn and run. Chapter 155. Feeling this incredibly powerful aura, Zhao Fu stopped and turned to look at the figure standing in the air. Only the Heavenstone City Lord could possess such power. Shi Jian, the Heavenstone City Lord, stood in the air and looked down at his countless soldiers, as well as his 3 generals. One was injured, one was dead, and one was crippled. His dignified face was filled with fury as he said to Zhao Fu, "You deserve to die." "Ha ha!" Zhao Fu madly laughed. It was them who killed his own people first, and now they won't let Zhao Fu kill their people. Perhaps this is a world where the strong preys on the weak, and it's not suitable to be reasonable. Zhao Fu's blood-red eyes looked at Shi Jian as he said in a sharp and hoarse voice, "I deserve to die. Come and kill me then." "Ha ha!" After saying this, Zhao Fu once again madly laughed, and his body exploded with even more power than before. It was as if an ultimate power was about to form, and countless bolts of lightning flashed around Zhao Fu. The ground in a 10-meter radius around him was unable to withstand this terrifying power, and it instantly collapsed. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, Shi Jian was infuriated, and his body exploded with a destructive azure aura flame that covered the 10-meter radius around him, making him look like an azure sun. A corporeal spirit pressure covered the surrounding 10,000 meters, and at the center of the aura flame, Shi Jian's clothes fluttered without any wind, making him look even more terrifying and ferocious than before. Xing! Shi Jian unsheathed the long saber at his waist and stomped on the air. With a loud explosion, Shi Jian shot down like a cannonball. In just an instant, Shi Jian had arrived in front of Zhao Fu and swung his saber at Zhao Fu. Seeing Shi Jian in front of him, Zhao Fu coldly smiled and gripped the sky demon's sword as he vigorously blocked. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the 2 extremely powerful forces collided, turning into a shockwave of annihilation that spread out. The air exploded, the ground crumbled, trees were destroyed, and all living beings perished. Even the countless players who had run very far away could sense the terrifying shockwaves behind them. At the same time, everyone in Heavenstone City was given a big fright. Sensing this terrifying power, countless residents of the southern city gates looked incredibly panicked and ran away from the southern city gates. A large number of soldiers rushed over like a flood. Boom, 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 boom. Massive explosions sounded out as Zhao Fu and Shi Jian continued their intense battle. As the battle dragged on, both of them started to become injured, and their clothes became more and more messy and bloodstained. At that moment, the azure aura around Shi Jian's body condensed as he ferociously slashed out with his saber. A 10 or so meter tall azure saber light left a deep gash in the ground as it flew toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu sent a large amount of King's power into the sky demon's sword as he raised it and pointed it forwards. A massive, half-corporeal image of a demon flew out from the sword, spread its wings, and roared as it flew towards Shi Jian with immense evil power. Boom! Another massive explosion sounded out as the 2 attacks collided, resulting in a massive shockwave that destroyed everything in its path. The shockwave also enveloped the 2 of them, and they both coughed up a mouthful of blood as they were sent flying backwards. Shi Jian twisted his body in midair and landed on the ground. His gaze became serious as he looked at Zhao Fu. After this battle, he felt that he had underestimated Zhao Fu. However, his expression immediately became savage as he looked at Zhao Fu and yelled, "Don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you've used a nation armament that hasn't matured yet. I'll show you the true power of a city lord." Shi Jian roared, causing the entire Heavenstone City to tremble and give off a faint light. A formless energy entered Shi Jian's body, causing his veins to bulge. A large amount of azure aura spread out like a fog, covering the surrounding 100 meters. A mysterious talisman that was as big as a palm appeared in front of Shi Jian, and the instant that the talisman appeared, Shi Jian's power was pushed to the limit. An explosion sounded out, and the air around him seemed to explode as a terrifying spirit pressure spread out, making Shi Jian look like a peerless war god. Zhao Fu was quite shocked. Shi Jian had used some sort of power from Heavenstone City, and his power had already surpassed his own. At that moment, Shi Jian stomped off the ground, causing the ground to crack as he turned into an azure ray of light and shot toward Zhao Fu. Seeing Shi Jian charging at him, Zhao Fu's expression became savage. He slashed open a wound on his palm with his Sky Demon sword before stabbing it into the ground. A large amount of Sky Demon Chi flowed into the ground, dyeing the ground black. A black domain that was 1,000 meters wide instantly formed. Shi Jian was incredibly fast, and he was within 500 meters of Zhao Fu in an instant. Seeing this, Zhao Fu slammed his palm into the ground. Blood spikes that were even thicker than before suddenly pierced out from the ground with terrifying force. Shi Jian coldly harumphed, and the azure talisman floating in front of him seemed to have a life of its own as it automatically floated onto the saber in his hand. Immediately, the saber in his hand became an azure stone saber that gave off a brilliant light. It gave off an even sharper saber aura than before, and anyone who looked at it would feel as if their eyes would be injured. Shi Jian gripped the stone saber and swung it, causing a 1,000-meter-long azure saber image to flash out. Bang! 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 The massive spikes were destroyed, and Zhao Fu spat out a mouthful of blood as he flew backwards, a bone-deep wound appearing on his chest. Seeing Zhao Fu fall to the ground, Shi Jian leapt up, crossing over 100 meters in an instant and arriving at Zhao Fu's side. Zhao Fu lay on the ground weakly. That peerless saber strike had heavily injured him. Zhao Fu lightly coughed up a mouthful of blood as he looked at Shi Jian, who was slowly raising his saber with bloodshot eyes. The terrifying stone saber shot out a saber light that was more than 10 meters long, and it gave off a shocking aura. Even a powerful dragon would die under this saber strike. Die! Shi Jian coldly yelled as he swung his saber down toward Zhao Fu. He definitely wouldn't let this person who had killed his general and many of his soldiers go. At that moment, he felt a sense of satisfaction from taking revenge. The saber gave off a sharp saber light as it swung down towards Zhao Fu, and the saber light was about to devour Zhao Fu's body. Boom! At that moment, a shocking explosion sounded out as if a hole had been torn in the heavens and earth, and a blinding golden pillar of light shot into the sky. At that moment, the other 3 city lords of East Green suddenly looked towards Heavenstone City in shock. Shi Jian was also quite shocked, and he was pushed back dozens of meters. Chapter 156. Within the dazzling golden pillar of light, Zhao Fu stood up with his sword in one hand and slowly raised his head to look at the sky before slowly closing his eyes. The noble golden light covered Zhao Fu's body, and Zhao Fu's blood began to flow quickly and hotly. His heart also began to beat vigorously, as if Zhao Fu was also glowing with a golden light. The two of them were resonating with each other. Boom! At this moment, the pillar of light exploded with an even more dazzling golden light than before, and a powerful force began to flow into Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu's black hair that reached his waist started to move even though there was no wind, and his clothes also started to flutter as if they were being blown by the wind. An ultimate force seemed to be forming. Everything fell silent. No matter if it was insects, birds, or beasts, none of them dared to make a single sound. The deathly silence was quite frightening. Finally, the golden pillar of light's power completely flowed into Zhao Fu's body, and the golden light from the pillar of light gradually dimmed. Zhao Fu slowly lowered his head, and at this moment, he opened his eyes and looked at Shi Jian. His blood-red eyes were as deep and terrifying as the stars in the night sky. Boom! A golden barrier of light spread out from Zhao Fu's body, and everything, including rocks, grass, and the ground, collapsed. At this moment, Zhao Fu's body gave off an indescribably powerful aura. In front of him, The heavens and earth seemed to lose their splendor, and everything in the world seemed so small and insignificant. At this moment, he was the supreme king. Suddenly, Zhao Fu moved, arriving in front of Shi Jian in the blink of an eye, and swung his sword towards him. Shi Jian was also shocked and used all of his strength to block with his saber in front of him. Zhao Fu smiled condescendingly as he gripped the Sky Demon's sword and sent his power into it. The Sky Demon Sword's power increased by many times, and he swung it towards Shi Jian. Clang! The sound of metal clashing could be heard as Shi Jian was pushed back more than 100 meters by Zhao Fu's attack, and his feet left 2 deep grooves in the ground. Shi Jian's expression was quite unsightly. His hands, which were gripping his saber, were in pain. At the same time, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He had never thought that Zhao Fu would have another nation armament. This nation armament seemed to be even more powerful than the one from before, and it did not seem to be an ordinary nation armament, but a clan armament that could suppress a clan's fate. A clan armament represents a clan's rise and fall, and only a saint or saint of that clan can possess one. Just who did that unfilial son offend this time? For the first time, Shi Jian was so angry at his son. In the distance, 3 figures stood in the air, giving off waves of spiritual pressure as they watched everything. One of them, a simple and honest-looking middle-aged man, said, "Are we just going to watch? Shi Jian's situation is not good." Another beautiful young woman frowned and sighed, saying, "It's not like that. What else could they do? He's an otherworlder, and even if we can help Shi Jian kill him, we won't be able to truly kill him. When the time comes, he'll come back filled with hatred and drag the 3 of us in. After all, he has a nation armament. He also has a clan armament. Once he grows up, you can already imagine what will happen to us." In the end, a white-haired elder nodded and said, "This Shi Jian is reaping what he sowed. He spoiled that trash of a son too much, causing the entire Heavenstone city to be filled with chaos and resentment. Now, he's finally offended someone he shouldn't have offended. Even without this, he would have been devoured by the ruler's power." Back at the battlefield, Zhao Fu's body suddenly blurred as he disappeared and reappeared at Shi Jian's side, slashing out with terrifying power. Bang! Shi Jian blocked with all his might, but he was once again sent flying 100 or so meters away. He crashed into a massive boulder, causing the boulder to shatter and causing Shi Jian to cough up a mouthful of blood. By now, the situation had completely reversed, and Shi Jian was completely unable to retaliate against Zhao Fu. Shi Jian's face hardened, and he began to fight with his life on the line. He stabbed his saber into the ground, and a dazzling green light burst out from his body. He opened his arms and roared, and a green rune appeared. After this rune appeared, all the green light in the surroundings gathered towards it, and finally formed a simple green stone seal. This was Heavenstone City's lifeline, the City Lord's seal. After the City Lord's seal appeared, it gave off a blinding light and slowly fused into Shi Jian's chest. Boom! An azure energy exploded out from Shi Jian's body and spread out, causing the ground to collapse. An azure light shot out from Shi Jian's eyes as his body gave off a terrifying aura. Suddenly, Zhao Fu evilly smiled as he appeared above Shi Jian and ferociously slashed towards him. Sky Demon Slash. The sword spat out a black light as it slashed towards Shi Jian, but Shi Jian grabbed at the air, causing the saber in the ground to fly into his hand and block. Boom! The black light and azure light collided, causing a formless energy to ripple out. A 100-meter wide, 10-meter deep crater appeared under Shi Jian's feet. Bang! Shi Jian gritted his teeth and slashed out with his saber with both hands. The saber gave off a sharp saber light, forcing Zhao Fu back. Zhao Fu's body flew backwards in the air, and Shi Jian leapt up from the ground and caught up to Zhao Fu. He swung his saber, sending out waves of azure saber light that covered Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's expression became serious, and he also swung his sword, sending out black arcs of light. Bang, 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 the saber light and the sword arcs collided, resulting in explosions. Saber light and sword light shot everywhere, and the clash in the air created a massive gale that swept out in all directions. Even boulders that were as big as tables were blown into the air. This battle caused the weather to change. Countless people stood far away and watched the shocking battle from afar. They could only fall into a state of shock, unable to say anything. This was because this was no longer a battle between two people, but a battle between two lofty gods. Ah! Shi Jian roared and slashed out a 10-meter-long azure saber light toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu raised his sword, and the huge black sword light collided with it. When the two collided, another earth-shattering explosion rang out. At this moment, Shi Jian's expression darkened, and he made up his mind. He raised his saber with one hand, and all the azure energy in his body surged towards the saber. A 30-meter-tall azure lion appeared beside Shi Jian, bearing its fangs and claws. Shi Jian waved the saber in his hand, and the cyan lion leaped from his side, running towards Zhao Fu to attack. Chapter 157. Roar! The azure lion roared and gave off a ferocious aura as it quickly ran over. In just a few seconds, it was within 100 meters of Zhao Fu. Seeing this, Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and raised the sky demon sword. His king's power flowed into the sword as he pointed at the azure lion. Similarly, a massive, corporeal demon, bringing with it the evilness and bloodlust of hell, rushed out of the sword and roared as it collided with the azure lion. Just as the demon and lion were about to collide, Shi Jian suddenly swallowed a precious medicinal pill that could increase his strength by several times. As the city lord, he had quite a bit of wealth. After swallowing the medicinal pill, Shi Jian's body doubled in size, and his muscles bulged as he burst forth with even greater strength than before. His body suddenly blurred, and the instant the demon and lion collided, he appeared beside Zhao Fu like a ghost. He raised his saber high into the air, and the saber gave off a sharp saber light towards the sky. A 1,000-meter-tall saber image appeared, and the clouds in the sky were scattered by the saber chi. Zhao Fu was given a big fright, and his hair stood on end as he turned to look at Shi Jian, who had suddenly appeared beside him. At that moment, Shi Jian's expression became savage as he madly roared. He gripped his saber and slashed down towards Zhao Fu with the power to split the heavens and the earth. Boom! As Shi Jian's saber slashed down, it was as if the heavens and earth had been split apart, and everything was destroyed. Roar! However, at that moment, an even more powerful dragon's roar sounded out. This roar was so loud that it could split rocks and pierce through metal, shatter the clouds, and cause all creatures to submit to it. A blinding golden light exploded out like a star exploding. Shi Jian was completely dumbfounded as he was sent flying 1,000 meters away, crashing into the Heavenstone city walls. The city walls, which were as tough as iron and couldn't even be damaged by magic, were now covered with cracks that were 20 or so meters long. Shi Jian spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body was stuck on the city wall. His eyes widened as he stared at the center of the golden storm, where the 9 seemingly alive golden dragons revolved around Zhao Fu's body. At this moment, the ground beneath Zhao Fu's feet had already collapsed into a bottomless pit. However, the 9 golden dragons that were more than a meter long circled around him, allowing him to stand in the air. This scene caused the 3 people watching from afar to feel completely dumbfounded. They could not believe that Zhao Fu could explode out with such terrifying power, and they had thought that Shi Jian would be able to kill Zhao Fu with a single strike. However, the situation had suddenly reversed, making them feel as if they were dreaming. Let's go. Don't make him hostile. The beautiful young woman swallowed a mouthful of saliva as she looked at the scene in the distance in shock. The other 2 people also had similar expressions, and hearing her words, they couldn't help but nod. After all, the power that Zhao Fu had released this time was something that even the 3 of them wouldn't be able to take advantage of. Right now, the 2 people at the front were completely bloodshot, and if they were accidentally dragged in, the consequences would be unimaginable. The three of them quickly left, and the countless players who had been watching from afar once again retreated far away. The place where they had been standing had been swept up by the golden storm, causing sand and pebbles to fly and trees to sway, and even their bodies to be blown away. However, there were still countless people in East Green excitedly rushing over because a post had appeared on the Heaven Awakened World Forum. Do you want to see a true godly spirit battle? Come to East Green's Heavenstone City's southern gate. The terrifying battle is unimaginably powerful. I'm an ordinary person in East Green, and I originally didn't want to go to Heavenstone City because the Chien family relies on the support of the main city's officials and is too domineering and unbridled. They don't put anyone in their eyes at all, and anyone who offends the Chien family will only die. However, I had something to do today, so I went over. I never thought that I would find such a shocking event. Someone who looked like a player was fighting with the Heavenstone City Lord. The scene was simply too terrifying, and it was as if the end of the world had arrived. This definitely wasn't a power that an ordinary person could have. I just wanted to quickly notify everyone. Now, I'm going to go in and watch this world-shaking battle, as it will be incredibly rare to see such a battle in one's lifetime. At first, most people didn't believe this post, and they thought that it was some sort of trick to gain attention. As such, they scoffed at the post. However, as 1, 2, 3, countless people confirmed that this was true, the calm Heaven Awakened World Forum once again became lively. A battle between gods? It was likely that no one had ever seen such a thing before, but they could imagine how terrifying it would be. Countless people hurried over with curiosity in their hearts. At the same time, this matter also attracted the attention of countless factions. Is it a battle between a player and a city lord? Is it possible for players to have such power at this stage of the game? What's more, this happened in the northern side of the Midland Continent. The northern side of the Midland Continent was a place that many factions were afraid of, as Chien's shadow loomed over that direction. All of the major events that had shaken the world had happened there, and now something like this had happened there. Many people instinctively wondered if this had anything to do with Great Chien. However, whether or not this matter had anything to do with Great Chien, and whether or not the person fighting with the city lord was a player could be ignored. After all, just this battle alone was enough for them to send countless people over to gather information about it. His gaze returned to the battlefield once more. By now, Heavenstone City's 100,000 Stage 1 soldiers had all arrived. Seeing their respected city lord heavily injured, they felt incredibly furious, and their eyes, filled with killing intent, looked at Zhao Fu in the distance. At that moment, they were still quite rational, and they understood that the enemy in front of them could not be dealt with numbers. As such, they simultaneously knelt on the ground and yelled, "City Lord, let's use our power." Facing Zhao Fu, who was so powerful that he could cause others to despair, there was nothing Shi Jian could do. As such, he could only use his final trump card. Shi Jian weakly stretched out his blood-stained right hand, and the City Lord seal that had fused into his body gave off a formless energy that spread out from Shi Jian's body. Traces of blood-red aura rose up from the black mass of soldiers kneeling on the ground, making it look like a sea of blood. After this aura appeared, it flooded into Shi Jian's body. How terrifying would the power of 100,000 Stage 1 soldiers be when gathered together? The answer is that they can kill gods. Boom! A powerful energy that seemed to be able to twist space exploded out from Shi Jian's body, causing everything around him to turn into nothingness. An azure and blood-red aura flame rose up from Shi Jian's body, seeming to pierce through the clouds, causing the entire sky to darken. The Armageddon event had officially begun. Chapter 158. Zhao Fu held his sword and stood in the air with his hands behind his back. His body gave off a faint golden light as he coldly looked at Shi Jian with his blood-red, gem-like eyes. Shi Jian also stood in the air, and his body gave off azure and blood-red aura flames. With the power of 100,000 soldiers entering his body, he seemed to have the power to kill a god, and he was so powerful that even he was shocked. At that moment, Zhao Fu slowly raised his sword and turned into a golden torrent as he shot towards Shi Jian. Shi Jian's expression became cold as he gripped his saber and turned into an azure and blood-red torrent as he shot towards Zhao Fu. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the two rays of light collided, causing a blinding white light to explode out. Following this, a shocking shockwave spread out like a massive gale, causing the ground to shatter and trees to snap, and the surrounding creatures to flee in all directions. The two people in the air were also sent flying backwards, and after stabilizing their bodies, a trace of blood leaked out of their mouths. However, their gazes focused as they once again collided in the air. Explosions sounded out as blinding white light exploded out in the sky. Everyone in the distance stared dumbfoundedly at this shocking battle and the terrifying scene that it had created. Whether it was the hills, boulders, trees, or anything else, they had all been turned into nothingness, and tens of thousands of meters of land had been razed to the ground. Heavenstone City was protected by a formless energy, so it had survived. If it had been a normal town, it would have been destroyed by this terrifying battle. The two people in the air continued to fight with shocking power, but they had both suffered many injuries. Neither of them had any time to waste. Zhao Fu had used up Qin's fate, while Shi Jian had used up 100,000 soldiers' life force. As such, an even more intense battle erupted. Shi Jian furiously roared as he slashed out hundreds of terrifying saber lights, covering Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu raised his hand, and a massive black arc of light flashed out, destroying the countless saber lights. Suddenly, Shi Jian appeared at Zhao Fu's side. The long saber in his hand emitted a sharp saber light, which turned into a huge green lion. It was 100 meters tall and had a ferocious aura as it opened its bloody mouth. Because Shi Jian was already very close, the moment the green lion was formed, Zhao Fu was already in front of its mouth. The huge lion's mouth was about to bite down on Zhao Fu, and the force of this bite was enough to bite off a mountain. It was extremely terrifying. Roar! At that moment, a massive dragon's roar sounded out as Zhao Fu stretched out his palm towards Shi Jian. The 9 golden dragons around him roared and gave off large amounts of golden light, turning into golden dragons that were dozens of meters long and ferociously slamming towards Shi Jian. Bang! The green lion was pierced through by the golden dragon's mouth, causing it to explode. Following this, the 9 golden dragons slammed towards Shi Jian one by one, and the terrifying force of the golden dragons sent Shi Jian flying more than 1,000 meters. Moreover, he had been slammed twice and thrice. The 8th golden dragon slammed Shi Jian into the city walls, causing countless cracks to appear. However, the 9th golden dragon also slammed into Shi Jian, causing a golden light to explode. Boom! With a massive explosion, the incredibly sturdy city walls that were dozens of meters tall completely collapsed, and Shi Jian lay in the rubble, covered in blood. Seeing this, the 100,000 Stage 1 soldiers were enraged and roared, "We are willing to give up our lives to the city lord." Following this, streaks of powerful blood-red light shot out from every soldier's body and surged towards Shi Jian. Shi Jian, who had fallen to the ground, roared towards the sky, once again receiving a terrifying force. The streaks of blood-red light gathered on Shi Jian's body, causing his entire body to emit a blinding blood-red light. Suddenly, a massive blood-red hand that was as monstrous as a demon stretched out from the blood-red light, crossing 1,000 meters and grabbing at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu was greatly startled, but the massive blood-red hand slammed Zhao Fu into the ground. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as if there was an earthquake, and a 1,000-meter wide handprint appeared on the ground. The ground caved in by 10 or so meters, and at the center of the handprint lay Zhao Fu, covered in blood. Cough! Zhao Fu coughed up a mouthful of blood and slowly stood up from the ground. He raised the sky demon sword and said, It's time to end this. Demon's son. Boom! A jet-black, demonic pillar shot into the sky, piercing through the clouds, and a massive wave of demonic chi spread out. The sun in the sky was gradually dyed black, and it gave off a terrifying demonic light that seemed to devour souls. A boundless demonic intent descended like the pressure of the heavens and earth, causing all creatures to feel fear. Zhao Fu had used the sky demon's most powerful skill. Demon's son. On the other side, Shi Jian stood up, covered in blood. Seeing Zhao Fu use his ultimate skill, his expression became serious as he raised his right hand, and a stone seal appeared above it. The entire Heavenstone city exploded with a powerful azure light, and it wasn't just the soldiers but also the countless residents within Heavenstone City. Traces of azure chi floated out of their bodies and flowed into the stone seal, causing it to shine with a brilliant azure light. Suddenly, a 1,000-meter-tall azure stone seal image appeared, giving off an incredibly heavy, dignified, and powerful aura that seemed to be able to suppress the heavens. Within the demonic pillar, Zhao Fu's feet were a few inches off the ground, and the blood-red light in his eyes became even more intense, making them look like two stars. At that moment, he raised the sky demon sword and vigorously slashed down towards Heavenstone City. Boom! A monstrous sword light containing enough power to destroy the heavens and earth slashed towards Heavenstone City. Facing this monstrous sword light, Shi Jian roared, and his raised right hand cracked open, turning it into a bloody hand. He vigorously slashed out with the stone seal, and the 1,000-meter-tall stone seal also flew toward Zhao Fu. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out, and it was as if something in the heavens and earth had been shattered. The black sword light and azure stone seal collided, and a blinding white light exploded out. The entire heavens and earth turned white, and everything disappeared in an instant. Everyone felt as if they had gone deaf, and they couldn't hear anything at all. Everything in front of them was a blur, and their bodies froze. After a long time, the white light disappeared, and their hearing returned to normal. Only then did everyone stare at the apocalyptic scene in front of them. A 10,000-meter-wide crater had appeared in front of them, and the trees in the surrounding few kilometers had all been destroyed. The remnant power caused everyone to feel a chill in their hearts, and they didn't dare to come close. The massive and majestic Heavenstone City had been split in half by a massive sword gash, and the southern side had completely collapsed. Is the battle over? Chapter 159. Following this, all sorts of information about this shocking battle started to circulate on the Heaven Awaken World Forum. The outcome of this terrifying battle was that the southern side of Heavenstone City had been completely destroyed, and it had been split in half by a sword gash. Nearly 10,000 Stage 1 soldiers had died, and luckily, the commoners had managed to escape, but there had still been many casualties. The remaining 90,000 soldiers' cultivations had all fallen below Stage 1, and the city lord, Shi Jian, was heavily injured and unconscious. This was a massive blow to Heavenstone City, and the losses were incalculable. At the same time, countless people felt quite curious about the person who had fought with Heavenstone City's city lord. After hearing about this shocking battle from those who had been fortunate enough to witness it, everyone fell into a state of shock. Could a player possess such monstrous power? Many people suspected that he wasn't a player and was instead the city lord of a system main city. However, some information leaked out from Heavenstone City, dispelling these suspicions. He was indeed a player, but how could a player have such monstrous power? Countless people couldn't understand. However, as a top-tier faction with a legacy, after hearing about this, they felt incredibly shocked before letting out a sigh of relief. They knew why that player had such monstrous power. There was only one possibility. He had used his nation armament's power, and it wasn't an ordinary nation armament at that. Factions with nation armaments were all top-tier factions, and they were all people with status and prestige. Wherever they were, ordinary factions would have to make way for them. As such, Many people knew where these people were, but they had never heard of East Green having a dynasty legatee. As such, there was only one answer. He's Qin's legatee, who hasn't shown himself yet. When they thought about this, countless factions felt incredibly excited. Before, Qin hadn't shown himself, and he had been filled with boundless mysteries. This sort of unknown was what people fear the most, and it made it so that they couldn't sleep at night. This was especially so for the factions in the northern side of the Midland continent. They had been worried every day that Qin was right next to them, and now, the mysterious Qin had finally appeared. Even though the power that Qin had displayed could make ordinary factions tremble in fear, at least they knew where he was, so they didn't feel any fear of the unknown anymore. After hearing about Qin's appearance, the four top-tier factions, Xia, Shang, and Zhou, couldn't help but feel incredibly happy. Then they discussed all kinds of precautions against Qin in the future. At the same time, this news attracted the attention of other countries. China was now the #1 ancient country in the heaven-awakened world, and it had countless legacies. All of them were incredibly powerful, and its existence threatened the safety of other countries. Although they did not say it out loud, many countries had already listed China as their #1 enemy. This was something that could not be helped. China's strength was too terrifying, and they could not help but feel enmity towards China. Therefore, they were particularly concerned about the news from Huaxia. Now that Qin, who had occupied the first position in Huaxia, had finally appeared, they couldn't help but feel happy. At that time, Qin had been favored by the entire Huaxia. In their hearts, they had already regarded Qin as the most powerful force in Huaxia. However, Qin had always been shrouded in a mysterious veil, which made them feel uneasy. Now that Qin had appeared, the uneasiness in their hearts lessened a little. Next, news spread that Qin's legatee was called Li Wu. Most factions knew about this because Heavenstone City had listed Zhao Fu as an S-grade fugitive, and they had used the name that Zhao Fu had left behind when he had bought the property. As such, this was not a big secret, and many people knew about it. The key was whether this information was accurate or not. No one had much confidence in it. Next, a person called Li Wu in East Green would definitely become famous. Hearing that someone was called Li Wu, countless people excitedly crowded around him to see if he was the mysterious Qin's legatee. Now, Zhao Fu's fame was not inferior to that of international superstars at all. Within a hidden room in East Green, a few people sat in a circle. They were people from the school of legalism. At that moment, one of them said, "What do you think? It's possible that Qin's legatee is in East Green." Another person thought for a moment before replying, "I think we should go to Qin's legatee." Now that the 100 schools of thought have their own masters, many of us from the school of legalism have already found factions to serve. After the real world is devoured, we can establish our own businesses. I think that Qin is quite suitable for the school of legalism. Another person nodded in agreement, saying, "We just don't know where Qin is and how we can get in touch with Qin's legatee." The few people continued to discuss this matter. Over at an unremarkable person, Li Wu was 22 years old and was in his 3rd year of university. His family was quite ordinary, and after entering the heaven-awakened world, he had been lucky enough to obtain an ordinary city creation stone, which he used to establish a village. The village was called Qin Village, and it was in a remote area in East Green. In ancient times, Li Wu had liked the Qin Empire, which was quite imperialistic. Why do we have to be peaceful? Why do we have to be good people and be bullied by others? Why couldn't we be powerful enough to cause others to fear us? Why couldn't we bully others? The Qin Empire had done all of this, and Li Wu had some ambitions. He wanted to develop his village into a faction like that, but he didn't dare to think about establishing an empire. Suddenly, on that day, a few people who called themselves the Ying family came to find him and brought him great news. The Ying family was willing to provide him with some resources and money, as well as powerful protection to help him develop his village. However, all of these benefits came with a condition, which was that he had to promise them one thing, which was that from this moment onwards, he would be Qin's legatee. When he heard this, Li Wu felt quite confused. He didn't understand why the Ying family wanted him to be Qin's legatee. However, he suddenly thought of the hottest news, which was that Qin's legatee was also called Li Wu. Li Wu thought to himself, what a coincidence, I'm also called Li Wu. However, why did the Ying family want him to pretend to be Qin's legatee? A small figure like him couldn't afford to offend a massive faction like the Ying family. Li Wu felt that if he agreed, he would be dragged into a massive vortex. Just as he was about to refuse, the Ying family's people started to threaten him, making him feel quite angry. However, after thinking about it, he realized that this was an opportunity. With his current strength, it would be very difficult for him to make a name for himself in the future. Why not use the Ying family's massive faction to develop? Chapter 160. This chain of big news caused everyone to feel quite shocked. What was going on? Why did Prince Qin, who hadn't shown himself before, suddenly change his attitude and return to the Ying family? Countless factions started to investigate, and the results were that this was actually possible, as there were many coincidences. The Li Wu that the Ying family had found was called Li Wu, and he lived in a village called Qin Village in East Green. At the same time, a distant relative of his was found to have Qin's bloodline. These coincidences caused the Ying family to create a scene that seemed to be the real Prince Qin. The Ying family's overall strength and resources weren't any weaker than any other faction, but in terms of legacy and reputation, they were the weakest. After so much time had passed, even though they had been searching and begging, Prince Qin still hadn't shown himself. Of course, the Ying family couldn't go on like this, so they could only carry out this plan. On one hand, they could regain some face, and on the other hand, they could divert all of the attention from the Ying family to East Green. This way, the Ying family could secretly develop and not draw too much attention. Also, whether or not the real Prince Qin's name is Li Wu and whether or not he's in East Green, we can't be 100% sure. It's just a big possibility. The Ying family actually wanted to help Zhao Fu divert attention. Now that he had caused such a big commotion and countless people were paying attention to him, it would be quite difficult to clean up the mess. As such, they wanted to help him divert attention. The Ying family hoped that Zhao Fu would feel the goodwill of the entire Ying family and return to the Ying family as soon as possible. Zhao Fu's many performances had won the respect of the Ying family's leaders, and they believed that he had the ability to restore Prince Qin's glory. They want to suck up to Zhao Fu instead. However, even though the Ying family had done a good job on the surface, many of the top-tier factions were still quite skeptical about Prince Qin's return, and they couldn't be 100% sure. Back at Heavenstone City, the most pitiful family was undoubtedly the Qian family. The Qian family was an ordinary family, and they were not very powerful. However, from the very beginning, he had gotten to know Heavenstone City's young lord, Shi, and because of this young lord's personality, he had done everything he could to curry favor with him. Not only had he given him countless new and interesting items, but he had even given away a few of his most beautiful disciples for Shi to play with. These direct descendants were deeply liked by Shi, so the Qian family's status in Heavenstone City gradually rose. Because they had the support of Heavenstone City's young lord, they used this advantage to force the other factions away, and those that did not leave would be destroyed by Heavenstone City's power. Gradually, the Qian family became the most powerful family in Heavenstone City, and because their status became higher and higher, they became more and more unrestrained. By now, the Qian family was the second largest faction in Heavenstone City. Most people would take a detour when they saw someone from the Qian family. Offending them was worse than offending the officials of the system. As long as you didn't offend the officials of the system, they wouldn't do anything to you. However, the Qian family didn't care about such things. If they didn't like you, they could kill you, and you wouldn't be able to do anything about it. At the same time, even if they didn't become barons, they could own hundreds of shops and obtain countless benefits in Heavenstone City. The Qian family's despicable methods made even the officials of the system feel quite annoyed, but Jian loved Shi when too much. They were quite angry about this, but they couldn't say it out loud. This caused the Qian family to become even more unrestrained, and they became more and more vicious and unscrupulous. Zhao Fu had made quite a big move when he had first arrived in Heavenstone City. He had suddenly bought 20 properties, opened his restaurant, and introduced many new and interesting dishes that the Qian family couldn't make. Moreover, the Chamber of Commerce that was incredibly profitable was most likely related to him. These things were a serious threat to the Qian family, and most of them had been instigated by the Qian family. More accurately, they had used them. They knew what Sherwin's personality was like, so they had used some tricks to make Sherwin go to Zhao Fu's restaurant, which was why things had become like this. Originally, the Qian family had wanted to uproot Zhao Fu's faction, and everything had gone according to plan. There was nothing for them to worry about or fear, as they had the power of Heavenstone City. After all, who would dare to offend the officials of the system? Who would be able to fight against the officials of the system? There's no one there at all. However, they had never thought that the simple act of getting rid of a faction would lead to such a terrifying result. This time, they hadn't kicked an iron plate, but an iron nail. After this happened, the Qian family understood how serious this matter was, and they immediately tried to retreat. However, it was too late, and countless furious soldiers surrounded them. However, these soldiers were still loyal to Shi Jian, and they suppressed their anger and didn't slaughter the entire Qian family. Instead, they waited for the unconscious Shi Jian to wake up and see how he would deal with this matter. If this matter wasn't handled well, Heavenstone City's reputation would plummet. The next day, the drunken Sherwin woke up and didn't know what had happened. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by a soldier and told that he was grounded. This made Sherwin feel incredibly furious, and he yelled, "I'm the young lord of Heavenstone City. I'll kill all of them later." However, all he received was a cold gaze from the soldier. In the end, Sherwin couldn't leave, and he furiously yelled, "Where's my dad? Tell him to come out. What's going on?" The soldier coldly harumphed, "You still have the face to ask? The city lord is heavily injured." "What? How can my dad be heavily injured?" "No, I want to go out." Sherwin couldn't believe this and tried to force his way out, but the soldier rudely pushed him into the room. In the end, Sherwin could only return to his room and furiously smash things around. Back at Qin Town, within the hall, Bai Qi furiously said, "Heavenstone City, I'll slaughter this city sooner or later." "All right, General Bai, calm down. General Bai, please calm down. Right now, the most important thing is to find out about His Majesty," Bai Qi said kindly. She knew who Bai Qi was, and it was possible that he could slaughter the 400,000 or so players in Heavenstone City, or perhaps even the 1 million players. "Is there any news about His Majesty?" Wang Jian asked worriedly as he frowned. Li Si sighed as he replied, "We've already sent thousands of people to East Green to look for him, but there's still no news of him." Chapter 161. Within a secluded valley, a heavily injured person covered with blood lay on a patch of grass. There were 3 strange humanoid creatures flying around him and shooting rainbow lights at him. Zhao Fu slowly opened his eyes. The sunlight was quite blinding, and Zhao Fu used his bloodied hand to block it. Suddenly, the 3 humanoid creatures beside Zhao Fu started to cry out, speaking a strange language. Only then did Zhao Fu notice them. They were only as big as a palm and looked like girls. Their facial features were quite small, and they wore clothes made of flower petals and had a pair of transparent leaf-shaped wings on their backs. The 3 of them were different in that they each had a different flower on their heads. One had a rose on her head and was quite lively. One had a lily on her head and was quite quiet, and one had a peach blossom on her head and was quite shy. Flower spirits? Zhao Fu looked at the creatures flying around him, and they seemed to be flower spirits. At that moment, the flower spirit with the rose on her head released a red light toward Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu was able to understand what they were saying. "Human, we saved you," the flower spirit with the rose on her head said with a pleased smile as she placed her hands on her waist. Zhao Fu felt quite weak, and he smiled as he said, "Thank you." The flower spirit with the rose on her head happily laughed as she said, "Human, there's no need to thank us. were pure and kind flower spirits. At that moment, the flower spirit with the lily on her head calmly explained, "Human, don't listen to her. It's because you're giving off an aura that attracts us flower spirits, which is why we saved you. Arg, bye-bye." Seeing her words exposed, the flower spirit with the rose on her head cried out unhappily. Hearing this, Zhao Fu thought back to the flower's embrace blessing that he had received during the 10,000 Flower Festival. This effect increases one's charm towards women, making it easier for fairies to like them. Zhao Fu had never thought that these blessings would come in handy. After chatting with the 3 flower spirits for a bit, Zhao Fu found out their names. The flower spirit with a rose on her head was called Rose Rose. The flower spirit with a lily on her head was called Bye Bye, and the flower spirit with a peach on her head was called Peach. Because of that blessing, as well as Zhao Fu's good personality, the 3 flower spirits quickly became familiar with Zhao Fu. They did not hide anything and directly told him about their abilities. They have 4 abilities. The first one was an offensive type. It could control plants to attack or protect itself. The second was a special type. The speed at which the flowers withered was delayed by 6 times where they were. The third was a healing type that possessed advanced life healing magic. The fourth type was the planting type. It had the ability to shorten the growth time of crops. Right now, it could shorten the growth time by 5 times. Of the 4 abilities, the most shocking was of course the fourth one. Reducing the growth time of crops by 5 times was equivalent to reducing the growth time by 500%, which was quite monstrous. The final ability of the Flower Fairy's blessing was that it had a chance of attracting flower spirits. This proved how rare flower spirits were and how powerful they were. What's more, the 3 of them could only shorten the growth time by 5 times. If they became stronger, they would be able to shorten the growth time even more. Zhao Fu definitely wanted to bring these 3 rare flower spirits back to Great Qin, and his methods were similar to those strange middle-aged men seducing Lolis. Zhao Fu described Great Qin as a wonderland with beautiful scenery and hundreds of flowers blooming. Zhao Fu was not lying. After receiving the level 3 Flower Fairy's blessing, Qin City had been filled with countless flowers, and even the air was filled with a faint fragrance. The 3 naive and pure flower spirits did not hesitate at all and agreed to bring Zhao Fu to Qin City. After chatting for a bit, they found out that Zhao Fu's name was Zhao. At that moment, Rose Rose said that she was hungry, and she called the other 2 flower spirits to go find some wild fruits. Zhao Fu stopped them and took out 3 black forest fruits from his king's ring and handed them over. There were 3 black forest fruits that were as big as fists, and the 3 flower spirits each held one. They took a bite and found that it tasted quite good, so they happily ate. Rose Rose ate in large mouthfuls, causing juice to splatter everywhere, while the other 2 were much quieter. What surprised Zhao Fu was that they were quite strong. After seeing the 3 flower spirits eat black forest fruits, Zhao Fu looked at himself and couldn't help but sigh. This was undoubtedly his most serious injury, and it was even more serious than when he had fought against the mysterious skeleton. This was because there was a trace of azure energy within Zhao Fu's body, preventing his injuries from healing. This azure energy had a suppressive and sealing power, and it was very difficult to dispel. As such, it would be quite difficult for him to recover. What made Zhao Fu's heart ache the most was that he had used up almost all of Qin City's fate. Zhao Fu had never said that he could casually use his nation armament, as it consumed fate. After all, fate determined the fate of a nation, so it was quite precious. Even though Zhao Fu had used up all of his fate this time, his foundation was not damaged, and his fate could still be recovered. However, he could not use his nation armament for a while, or else his foundation would be damaged. Nation armaments should only be used when making important decisions, such as conquering a nation or taking down a system main city. Even if there were massive benefits, such as obtaining an ancient king armament shard, nation armaments could only be used when there were massive benefits. Back then, Zhao Fu had used up a lot of fate, but because he had obtained the king armament shard, his fate had increased even more. This meant that the ancient king armament shard was incredibly important to Qin City. Even though Qin City's fate could be recovered, he had not obtained much this time. If Zhao Fu had been able to take down Heavenstone City, not only would he have been able to recover all of the fate he had used up, but it would have also greatly increased, and he would have met the requirements to level up his nation armament. However, with Zhao Fu's current strength, it was impossible for him to take down Heavenstone City. Even if he only had 40,000 Stage 1 soldiers, he would have been able to take down Heavenstone City. However, if he didn't include the skeletons, Zhao Fu only had 6,000 soldiers, and none of them had even reached Stage 1. The power of a system main city wasn't something that ordinary people could contend against. Zhao Fu felt quite regretful about this battle. Even though he knew that Heavenstone City had suffered heavy losses, both sides had suffered heavy losses, and neither side had gained anything. Back then, even though Zhao Fu had expected that there would be danger, he hadn't thought that Heavenstone City would be so ruthless and merciless, causing Zhao Fu to feel quite angry. Back then, he had suppressed his anger and chosen to escape. However, after being thwarted again and again, Zhao Fu had lost control of his emotions. Ever since he had obtained Qin City's legacy, Zhao Fu had found that his personality had gradually changed. He now had a trace of madness, a trace of ruthlessness, a trace of bloodlust, and a trace of coldness. What kind of person would Zhao Fu become in the future? Would he become the kind of person who would kill millions of people in a moment of anger? Even Zhao Fu wasn't sure. Chapter 162. Of course, this battle wasn't without any benefits. The first benefit was that Gu Feng's corpse had been put into Zhao Fu's king's ring. Gu Feng was one of Heavenstone City's 3 great generals, and his corpse's grade was SSS grade. Zhao Fu could once again nurture a top-tier general with his corpse. Apart from this, Gu Feng also had a normal grade legendary grade equipment and 4 gold grade equipment. The legendary grade equipment was the violet bow that he had used before. Great Spirit Rock Bow. Grade. Legendary stats. Strength plus 15. Intelligence plus 10. Constitution plus 10. Agility plus 10. Description. A piece of equipment that uses the corpse of Spirit Rock and has its soul sealed within it. Can obtain many of the Spirit Rock's abilities. This Great Spirit Rock Bow stats were quite ordinary, and Zhao Fu hadn't used it before. However, its most powerful skill was most likely the skill that he had used to shoot the Violet Spirit Rock. This was because this skill had been able to pierce through Zhao Fu's King's Domain. Even though Zhao Fu had hurriedly activated his King's Domain and hadn't used his full strength to defend, this arrow was enough to show the Great Spirit Rock Bow's might. It was a pity that Zhao Fu didn't have any bow-wielding generals, so he could only leave the Great Spirit Rock Bow with Zhao Fu for now and wait for its next owner to come. Out of the remaining 4 pieces of gold-grade equipment, one of them was a piece of leather armor that had been damaged and needed to be repaired. The other 3 were a short sword, a pendant, and a pair of boots. The 4 pieces of equipment were all exquisite gold-grade equipment, and they gave quite a lot of stats. The first 3 weren't very special, but the 4th pair of boots was quite good. Windwalk boots, grade, gold stats, strength plus 5, intelligence plus 5, constitution plus 10, agility plus 12, description. Wearer receives the wind's blessing and increases walking speed. Out of the 4 pieces of equipment, only the pendant and boots were of any use to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu looked through Gu Feng's spatial ring. This was a gold grade ring, and as soon as Zhao Fu looked inside, he saw that there were roughly 300,000 gold coins inside. There were also many materials, and Zhao Fu found 6 gold grade materials. With these 6 gold grade materials, and the ones from before, all of Zhao Fu's generals would have a piece of gold grade equipment. Apart from that, there were also some other items in the storage ring, as well as some skills. These weren't all that rare, and were quite ordinary, so there was no need to talk about them. However, there was one item that was quite special. This item was another piece of talisman paper. The talisman paper had 2 sides, one black and one white. The incantations drawn on it were also black and white. It looked quite strange. Reversal talisman can reverse an attribute, changing it to the opposite attribute. This item lasts for 12 days and can only be used on items that are gold grade or below. The talisman paper's purpose was to turn black into white and cold into hot. Zhao Fu couldn't think of any uses for it right now. This time, Gu Feng's gains were quite bountiful. After all, Gu Feng was one of Heavenstone City's 3 great generals. Now that Zhao Fu thought about it, he felt that it was a pity that he had not killed the other 2. However, these items couldn't compare to the amount of fate that Zhao Fu had spent. Following this, Zhao Fu took out an azure stone that was as big as a fingernail. This stone looked quite ordinary, and it was only azure in color. It looked as if it could be picked up on the street. Zhao Fu knew what this was. It was a small shard of the City Lord's seal. Indeed, Heavenstone City's City Lord seal was in a damaged state, which meant that Heavenstone City couldn't be leveled up or conquered, and it would lose some of its functions. With this shard of the City Lord's seal, Shi Jian wouldn't be able to use Heavenstone City's power to deal with Zhao Fu in the future. After all, Zhao Fu could use this shard to cancel out the battle for the City Lord's position and take it back. Now that the enmity between Zhao Fu and Heavenstone City was irreconcilable, Zhao Fu would definitely take revenge. In the future, he would definitely conquer Heavenstone City, and this shard of the City Lord seal would become incredibly important. This was all of his gains, and Zhao Fu sighed. He felt that he had made a loss compared to Qin City's fate. Zhao, when are you going to take us back to Qin City? Rose asked Zhao Fu as she quickly finished eating a black forest fruit. Her stomach was bloated, and she lay comfortably by the side. This made Zhao Fu feel quite troubled, as he realized that this task, which should have been quite easy, had become incredibly difficult. He had to use the system main city's teleportation channel to return to his village and return to Qin City. However, this was impossible. Of course, he couldn't return to Heavenstone City, so he could only go to the other 3 system main cities in East Green. Zhao Fu immediately took out his map and looked around him. He found that the nearest system main city was tens of thousands of kilometers away. If he walked, how long would it take to get there? Perhaps Zhao Fu could conquer a village and construct a teleportation channel, but Zhao Fu didn't know how to construct teleportation channels. Only if Zhao Fu found a village with a teleportation channel would he be able to quickly teleport to a system main city and return to Qin Town. Otherwise, he would have to walk. However, there was a problem. It was very rare for villages in the wilderness to have teleportation channels, so he could only rely on luck. When he thought of that, Zhao Fu said to Rose, I need a teleportation channel, so I can't go back to Qin City right now. I'll wait for my injuries to recover a bit before I try again. Oh. Rose nodded and lay down comfortably on the grass. She closed her eyes and happily smiled as she rubbed her round belly. Zhao Fu lay back down on the ground and took out a black forest fruit. As he ate, he looked up at the deep blue sky and the white clouds slowly drifting about. It was rare for him to be able to relax like this. 3 days later. Chapter 163. After 3 days of recovery, Zhao Fu's external injuries had healed quite quickly because of the 3 flower spirits. However, his internal injuries needed some time to recover. On that day, Zhao Fu changed out of his blood-stained clothes and put on a new cloak as he headed towards Nine Sun City, which was the closest city to him. As for the 3 flower spirits, they flew around Zhao Fu and followed him. When they were tired, they would sit on Zhao Fu's shoulders to rest. Seeing that the 3 of them were carefree and happy, Zhao Fu felt a trace of admiration. At that moment, he walked into a dense forest. Zhao Fu, there's danger ahead. Go around it, Rose, who was sitting on Zhao Fu's shoulder, suddenly said. Hearing this, Zhao Fu stopped and wondered, what danger is ahead? Sitting on Zhao Fu's shoulder, 100 White calmly explained, there's a historical remnant ahead, and there are many terrifying goblins there. We've been there before. There's also minotaurs. Peach, who was sitting next to 100 White, wanted to say this, but she was too nervous and cried out. After crying out, she found that her voice was too loud, and her face became bright red as she hid beside Hundred White. Historical remnant? Hearing their words, Zhao Fu felt quite interested. Places with historical remnant all had great benefits, and now that he had recovered some of his strength, Zhao Fu wanted to go and have a look. As such, he said, "You three hide in my cloak for now. I want to go and have a look." Zhao Fu, you have to be careful. Hearing this, the three flower spirits burrowed into Zhao Fu's cloak and poked their heads out to see what Zhao Fu was going to do. Following which, Zhao Fu used many of the assassin's skills and silently snuck into the forest. Soon, he arrived at an empty space. Only a small part of the buildings remained in this empty space. Most of the buildings had disappeared. The ruins were huge, and it was impossible to see them all at a glance. At the very front of the ruins, there was a huge stone with 2 words on it. Of course, Zhao Fu did not recognize the 2 words. Bai told Zhao Fu that the 2 words were Lorraine. Within the Roland historical remnant, there were a few types of goblins that Zhao Fu hadn't seen before. The goblins here all looked quite ferocious, and their skin was somewhat different. Some were pale white, while others were grayish-black. Some of them held a wooden stick in their hands. The front of the wooden stick was relatively large and looked like a hammer. The material of the wooden stick seemed to be harder than ordinary iron, so it should be able to cause decent blunt force damage. There was also a type of goblin that carried a wicker basket filled with rocks. These goblins could throw the rocks with great force, and they could even break the bones of creatures. This type of goblin was considered a long-range goblin. The final type of goblin was a goblin that held a sharp sword. There weren't many of these goblins, but the aura they gave off was very powerful. Even 10 normal goblins could compare to it. The 3 types of goblins were Goblin, Goblin Rock Thrower, and Hobgoblin. These goblins weren't gathered together, and they were instead scattered around. There weren't any guards patrolling the area, so they most likely didn't have a leader or anything like that. There were almost no defensive measures, and seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted. He decided to explore this historical remnant first before leaving. "I want to clear out the monsters here. Do you 3 want to wait outside?" Zhao Fu lowered his head and said to the 3 flower spirits. He was afraid that these pure and kind creatures would become fearful after seeing his killing methods, so he wanted them to wait outside. "Zhao, don't worry, we'll stay here and help you get rid of these terrifying creatures," Rose said as she looked at Zhao Fu and smiled, and the other 2 flower spirits nodded. Seeing this, Zhao Fu didn't have any more worries and started to move. Zhao Fu first went to a corner and planned to lure monsters away. With Zhao Fu's current strength, he couldn't go on a killing spree, even if he was at his peak. After all, this was the outermost region of the historical remnant, and who knew what terrifying creatures might be inside. As such, it was best to keep a low profile. After hiding behind a large tree, Zhao Fu vigorously threw out a rock. The rock quickly flew out and hit another rock, giving off a loud sound that attracted the attention of a group of goblins. Because Zhao Fu had goblins as his subordinates, he had learned many languages through the language stone steel, including goblins. As such, he was able to understand what they were saying. "AI, there seems to be something over there. Should we go and take a look?" An ordinary goblin asked. Hearing this, another goblin lay on the ground and said in boredom, "If there's something, then there's nothing to do with us. As long as we don't enter the historical remnant, we'll be fine. By the way, what are we going to eat for lunch?" "Let's catch a few chickens to eat. It's been a long time since we've had them," a goblin rock thrower said happily. Sure. Hearing the goblin rock thrower's words, the others thought about how delicious the chickens were and immediately nodded. The goblins started to talk about food, completely forgetting about the strange noise. Zhao Fu, who was hiding behind the tree, felt quite awkward. Why didn't they play by the rules? Following this, Zhao Fu threw out another rock, which smashed into a large tree and gave off a muffled sound. There's another strange sound coming from there. Are we really not going to go and take a look?" The goblin said in confusion. "Don't go. It's too troublesome. Don't worry about it," another goblin said as he frowned. The other goblins nodded, and the goblin who had spoken threw this matter to the back of his mind. This made Zhao Fu, who was hiding behind the tree, feel even more awkward. The 3 flower spirits on his chest covered their mouths, afraid that they would laugh out loud. Zhao Fu had no choice but to pick up a few more rocks from the ground and throw them at the goblins. The pebbles quickly flew out and smashed into a few goblins' heads, causing them to jump up. Damn it, that bastard threw them? Following this, they furiously looked in Zhao Fu's direction and picked up their weapons as they furiously walked over, vowing to cut that bastard into pieces. Seeing that the goblins had been lured over, Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. Chapter 164. Facing these goblins, Zhao Fu didn't use the Sky Demon Sword, and he instead used his assassins. This sort of dense forest was quite beneficial to assassins, and Zhao Fu didn't have the strength to kill all of them at once. If he was careless, he might even startle the other goblins. Seeing the 5 goblins furiously walk over, Zhao Fu hid within the forest, looking for an opportunity to attack. Look at which bastard did this. If we catch him, we'll definitely kill him. One of the goblins angrily yelled after they walked into the forest. Yes, we'll definitely kill him. The other goblins angrily replied. Zhao Fu calmly hid in a corner and watched as the goblins slowly walked closer. However, what surprised Zhao Fu was that after walking 20 or so meters, the goblins gave up on their search, completely abandoning their determination to kill Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu had wanted to lead them further away, because if they made too much noise here, they might attract the attention of other goblins. However, Zhao Fu had no other choice but to attack. Zhao Fu leapt out from a corner, and his speed was incredibly fast and light. He was like a light breeze as he arrived between the 2 goblin rock throwers at the back of the group. Zhao Fu stretched out his hands and placed them on the necks of the 2 goblin rock throwers. He activated the mechanism on his hands, and 2 silver-white rapiers stabbed out, instantly piercing into the necks of the 2 goblin rock throwers. The 2 goblin rock throwers only felt pain at the back of their necks, and their pupils contracted as they died. The other 3 goblins didn't even have time to react. Assassins were a profession with high agility. Zhao Fu grasped this opportunity and quickly pulled out his rapier from the necks of the 2 goblins. The 2 goblin rock throwers' corpses powerlessly fell to the ground, but Zhao Fu moved like a ghost. His body seemed to leave afterimages as he leaned forwards and ferociously stabbed out, stabbing one of the goblins' hearts from behind. By now, the corpses of the 2 goblin rock throwers were about to fall to the ground, and Zhao Fu grasped this opportunity. He sent his king's power into his rapier and slashed to the left, slicing open the neck of the goblin on the left. Bang! 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 The first 2 goblin rock throwers' corpses fell to the ground, and the rocks in the basket also fell to the ground, creating quite a loud sound. The 3rd goblin's corpse fell to the ground, and the 4th goblin's corpse fell to the ground. There was quite a bit of time between them. What happened just now seemed very slow, but it was actually only a matter of a few seconds. Time passed extremely quickly. Suddenly, the series of sounds caused the last goblin to be startled, and he turned around to look. Pooh! Zhao Fu's rapier pierced through the throat of the last goblin. The goblin whimpered and stared at Zhao Fu with wide eyes before falling to the ground dead. Zhao Fu felt quite happy that he had dealt with the 5 goblins so quickly and easily. The assassin profession was quite good, and Zhao Fu gradually started to like it. However, with Zhao Fu's status, he couldn't take this path, as he could only focus on the king's profession. After killing the 5 goblins, they didn't drop any good equipment, only a few wooden clubs. There were a few silver coins, but they weren't very attractive to Zhao Fu. There were also a few black wooden shards, and Zhao Fu felt quite curious and picked them up to have a look. Gloomy Jungle Shard. Collect 10 shards and combine them into a medallion. After using it, the medallion will allow the user to go to the secret space, Gloomy Jungle. Secret space. Zhao Fu did not know what this was because he had never heard of such a thing before. However, collecting these shards was quite easy, and he immediately obtained 5. After killing 5 more goblins, he would be able to create a gloomy jungle medallion. Zhao Fu did not know what they were, but he did not know what they were. Zhao, you're so strong. Rose looked up at Zhao Fu, her eyes shining with stars as she spoke with a look of worship on her face. Zhao Fu smiled. They hadn't seen him at his peak. He could have insta-killed those 5 goblins with a single strike, but he couldn't do that now. Following this, Zhao Fu continued to lure goblins and kill them. Zhao Fu turned to the Qin town. What's going on? It's been 3 days, so why hasn't there been any news from His Majesty? Bai Qi said angrily, and he gave off a cold aura that made people want to retreat. Li Si said, General Bai, we didn't receive any system announcements, which means that His Majesty is fine. We haven't received any system announcements, which means that His Majesty is fine and is most likely in East Green. Wang Jin nodded and said, It seems that His Majesty is fine and will return after a while. As subordinates, we should focus on the development of the Qin town. Bai Qi let out a breath and calmed himself down. He put down the worries in his heart and said, I have an idea. Would everyone like to hear it? Hearing Bai Qi's words, everyone looked at him, waiting to see what he would say. Bai Qi said what he was thinking. I believe that Qin town should enter a state of war. Right now, businesses can make a lot of money, but there aren't many good things that can be bought. I believe that we should focus on the war. Right now, what Qin City lacked the most was population. Right now, Qin City had roughly 50,000 people, and in the real world, the main reason for having a large army was because of food. However, in the Heaven Awakened world, because of the various buffs from the cities, food was one of the resources that they had no lack of. I think that we should increase the number of soldiers to 10,000 and split them into 10 teams led by 10 generals. Each team will have a king's undead cavalryman and 300 skeletons. With this number of soldiers, equipment, and cultivation base, Zhao Feng was confident. Skills. These advantages were more than enough for an intermediate village with a population of less than 1,200. Qin implemented a comprehensive empire system. War was the first priority. They would plunder people by hook or by crook. They also established a strict reward and punishment system. Those who brought back a large number of people would be rewarded greatly. If they didn't bring back a certain number of people within a certain period of time, the soldiers and generals would be punished together. After hearing Bai Qi's words, everyone's hearts trembled, and they understood what he meant. Bai Qi wanted to turn Qin City into a completely emotionless killing machine. This would allow Qin Town to develop even faster, but it would be too murderous. Not only would it cause a large number of people to die, but it would also cause a large number of deaths and injuries to Qin City. At the same time, Qin City would lose its sense of humanity, and its heart would become completely cold without any warmth. It would also lose all emotions, and it would only exist in killing and plundering. Chapter 165. If Zhao Fu was in the Qin state, no matter what ideas they had, they would follow Zhao Fu because he was the master of the Qin state and could decide the direction and fate of the Qin state. Now that Zhao Fu might be staying in East Green for a while, Qin was in a special situation. Coupled with the incident at Heavenstone City, Qin had to make a decision. Bai Qi, Xiao Jian, and some of the Outlander generals believed that the weak were prey to the strong, and that the strong were respected. He believed that emotions and other things that had nothing to do with power were only fetters and burdens. He should get rid of all these and completely turn Qin into a machine. Only in this way could he develop Qin more quickly and orderly. Li Si, Ba Qing, and Daisy belonged to the moderate faction. It was not that they did not approve of Qin City's development, but that Bai Qi's methods were too extreme. He would hurt both his enemies and himself. At the same time, he would also make the whole of Qin City cold. They just wanted to be gentler and not too extreme. Wang Jian and Zhang Dao didn't really like killing, but they wouldn't object to it either. In times like these, they could also make themselves cold-blooded and merciless. Now, everyone had their own ideals, and they all had their own ideals for Great Qin. As such, they were split into different factions. Because of this, Gunia temporarily ended his training and returned to Qin. Although he looked cold and had experienced countless bloody battles, he did not hesitate to side with the moderate faction. But it didn't change anything. Now, Qin was in the pro-war faction of Bai Qi. Li Si could only sigh and say, "General Bai, you know that His Highness is merciful and doesn't like his soldiers to be injured or killed. He also doesn't want to turn Qin into a cold-killing machine. His Highness may not like this." Bai Qi had been by Zhao Fu's side for a long time, so he understood Zhao Fu's personality. He knew the consequences of doing this, but he had already made up his mind. He wanted to create a powerful Qin state for Zhao Fu. So he said, "I will bear all of the consequences." Finally, a series of orders were given out, and Qin City, which had been filled with joy, became quite depressed. Everyone looked quite serious. Within the Roland historical remnant, Zhao Fu had killed 50 or so goblins and fused them into 5 gloomy jungle command medallions. The command medallion was black and made of wood. There was a forest carved on it, and Zhao Fu wanted to try it out. However, he received a system announcement that the secret realm's entrance was not open, so he could only put the command medallion away. Now that the goblins at the outermost layer of the historical remnant had been cleared out, Zhao Fu now had to face the hobgoblins. Zhao Fu felt that these hobgoblins would not be easy to deal with. Their cultivation was at stage 1, and their sharp swords could release terrifying sword lights at will. Zhao Fu was still injured, so he couldn't use much of his strength. As such, he had to be careful. Zhao Fu's method was the same. He lured a group of goblins to the side before choosing to attack. He leapt out from his hiding spot and stabbed his sword into a goblin's heart before stabbing into another goblin's neck. Even though Zhao Fu was incredibly fast, he was still discovered by the hobgoblin. Just as Zhao Fu was about to kill the third goblin, a sword light slashed towards him. This sword light was incredibly ferocious, and Zhao Fu hurriedly gave up on using his rapier. Instead, he took out the sky demon sword and used it to block. Clang! A clear sound rang out as sparks flew as the two swords collided. Even though Zhao Fu's strength wasn't as great as before, he was able to use the Sky Demon Sword's epic grade sharpness to leave a dent in the Hobgoblin's blue-grade weapon. The Hobgoblin was quite surprised, and he immediately retreated. The remaining 3 goblins surrounded Zhao Fu. Luckily, Zhao Fu had taken care of the 2 long-range goblins. Otherwise, it would have been quite troublesome to deal with this group of goblins. The 3 goblins surrounding Zhao Fu raised their wooden clubs and howled as they charged toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu did his best to circulate some of his king's power, and the Sky Demon's sword spat out a faint sword light. He swung. Zhao Fu slashed apart the wooden clubs in the 3 goblins' hands, causing the 3 goblins to feel quite confused. Zhao Fu once again swung his sword, preparing to kill the 3 goblins. However, the hobgoblin couldn't stand by and watch any longer, and a sharp sword arc shot out. Zhao Fu raised his hand and used his sword to block, dispelling this sword arc. The hobgoblin stabbed his sword toward Zhao Fu as he yelled, "Tell the other 3 goblins to call more goblins over." The other 3 goblins immediately turned and ran. Zhao Fu could understand what they were saying, but he was currently being held back by the hobgoblin, so he could only ask the 3 flower spirits to help him. The 3 flower spirits happily agreed and waved their hands, causing 3 rays of light to shoot out. 3 green vines shot out from the ground and wrapped around the 3 goblins like snakes, binding them and sealing their mouths so that they wouldn't be able to scream. Clang! 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 Elsewhere, the hobgoblin and Zhao Fu continued to fight. Their swords clashed, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. Of course, the hobgoblin's sword was now riddled with holes, and it looked like it was on the verge of being destroyed. This made the hobgoblin feel quite angry. He could sense that Zhao Fu's strength was about the same as his, but the difference in their weapons was simply too great. His blue-grade sword was like a piece of scrap metal compared to Zhao Fu's epic-grade sword, and because of this, he was completely suppressed by Zhao Fu. "Human, if you're so strong, you can switch to a normal sword." The hobgoblin yelled in frustration. Hearing this, Zhao Fu smiled. He wasn't an idiot. How could he switch to a normal sword? He vigorously slashed out, breaking the hobgoblin's sword in half. The hobgoblin was given a big fright. How was he supposed to fight without a weapon? He immediately turned and ran. At that moment, Zhao Fu grasped an opportunity and stabbed forwards with his sword, piercing through the hobgoblin's heart. He then twisted his sword and crushed the hobgoblin's heart, instantly killing him. After dying, the hobgoblin dropped two things. One was a black wooden shard, which seemed to be something that would definitely drop. Zhao Fu didn't pay much attention to it, but the other item was quite strange. It wasn't corporeal. Instead, it was a small clump of silver-white light that fell to the ground and gave off a faint light, looking quite mystical. Zhao Fu curiously picked it up and looked at it. Legacy, Silver Lake Immortal's Sword, Sword Essence, the essence of a legendary grade weapon, the Silver Lake Immortal Sword. Collect 1,200 of these essences to fuse into a Silver Lake Immortal Sword. This sword has a legacy effect. This thing can be fused in a legendary grade equipment. Chapter 166. After all, if he wanted to obtain 1,200 sword essences, he would have to kill 1,200 hobgoblins. Zhao Fu suspected that there were not that many hobgoblins, as he had only seen 50 or so of them, which was quite a distance away from the 1,200 sword essences. However, legendary grade equipment was quite difficult to obtain, so Zhao Fu understood that. After killing a hobgoblin, the Sky Demon Sword gave off a formless suction force that devoured the hobgoblin's flesh and essence, and Zhao Fu understood that the sleeping Sky Demon had awakened. However, when the three flower spirits sensed this power, their faces paled as they flew out of Zhao Fu's chest and screamed, "This power is so evil and disgusting. Zhao, you're holding a demon sword." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite surprised and nodded, not minding it too much. The Sky Demon Sword eerily laughed, and demonic chi flowed out of the sword, causing the surrounding temperature to plummet. It looked as if a demon was about to be born, and it greeted Rose and the other two flower spirits, saying, "Hello, you three little fellows." Rose and the other two flower spirits shrieked. This demon's sword can speak, and the demon within it is so powerful. Zhao, hurry and throw it away. Don't let it control you. Hearing their words, Zhao Fu smiled and said, "Don't worry, this sword will be fine." Really? Rose and the other two flower spirits didn't quite believe him. Zhao Fu tapped the Sky Demon Sword against the ground, and the Sky Demon Sword lightly harumphed before withdrawing the Sky Demon Sword and giving off a terrifying aura as it said, "All right, I shouldn't have scared you just then." Seeing that Zhao Fu had completely taken control of the Sky Demon Sword, Rose and the other two flower spirits let down their guard and flew over to the Sky Demon Sword, looking at it in fear and curiosity. Facing the three flower spirits' gazes, Rose and the other two flower spirits felt quite displeased. However, seeing that Zhao Fu quite liked the three of them, she could only let it go. But when even that stingy and powerful master liked it so much, letting it devour all of its essence and souls, how great would that be? The Sky Demon's gaze fell on the general soul in Zhao Fu's king's ring, and it couldn't help but lick its sexy lips. Zhao Fu turned his gaze to the three goblins trapped by the vines and casually threw a fireball at them, ending their lives. Afterwards, the three flower spirits flew back into Zhao Fu's clothes. Because of the battle with Shi Jian, the Sky Demon had fallen into a short sleep. Now that the Sky Demon had woken up, Zhao Fu wanted to borrow her power. This time, he once again lured over a group of goblins and used his assassin skills to kill the goblin rock throwers. Of course, he was discovered by the hobgoblin, who once again stabbed his sword toward Zhao Fu. Heavenly Demon. Zhao Fu switched to the Sky Demon Sword and lightly shouted. The Sky Demon Sword released a large amount of demonic chi and entered Zhao Fu's body. Immediately, Zhao Fu felt a wave of evil energy enter his body. Zhao Fu used his sword to block, deflecting the hobgoblin's sword. He then ferociously stabbed his sword towards the hobgoblin's throat. The hobgoblin was given a big fright and quickly tilted his head to the side. A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face, and he slashed out with his sword. A black arc of light flashed, and the hobgoblin's head fell off his body. A large amount of blood spurted out from his neck, and his corpse stood there in a daze before powerlessly falling to the ground. The surviving goblins immediately ran, and Zhao Fu caught up to them. A few black sword lights flashed, ending their lives. The Sky Demon sword continued to devour the goblins' corpses. With the Sky Demon sword's power, it would be much easier to deal with these goblins. Now that Zhao Fu was injured, he could only obtain half of the base stats from his equipment. Otherwise, with the Sky Demon sword's monstrous base stats, Zhao Fu would have been able to charge in and start a massacre. Following this, Zhao Fu continued to use this method to kill the goblins while collecting the shards and the sword essence. 2 days later, Thrall led his team and found an intermediate village with around 1,200 or so people in the forest. Now, Qin was completely militarized, and fighting was the priority. Not only was every team equipped with the best equipment in Qin, but they also spent a large amount of gold to buy good skills from the various systems for them to learn. Moreover, every team had 2 types of medicinal pills, one that could increase their strength for a short period of time, and the other that could quickly heal injuries. Finally, every team also had a few military doctors. Thrall's team was made up of orcs, and after discovering this village, he first observed it. He couldn't be careless, because if he made a big mistake, the commander would have to bear the consequences. Even if Bai Qi didn't kill him, he would at least cripple him. After observing for a while, Thrall found that this was just an ordinary village, and its defenses were quite average. In the end, Thrall decided to directly attack. Normally, if the leader didn't die or the village wasn't conquered, it would be very difficult for the residents to surrender. As such, if he wanted to obtain a large number of people, he had to quickly conquer or kill the leader. In the afternoon, the golden light of the setting sun shined on the peaceful village, and smoke rose up from the chimneys as every household started to cook. Thrall had been prepared for a long time. He raised his large saber and roared as he rode on his tall black forest horse and led 300 orc cavalrymen out. On the other side, the shield-bearers, infantrymen, and archers formed a square formation and rushed over. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Facing the sudden attack, the villagers cried out in terror, causing the entire village to fall into chaos. Swish! 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 Thrall's archers and ballistae attacked first, and arrows tore through the air as they shot into the village, causing cries to sound out. Following this, arrows also shot out from within the village. Thrall, who was at the front, swung his large saber, sending out a wave of saber light that sent 5 or 6 arrows flying. Some of the soldiers used their shields to block, while others chose to dodge. However, a small portion of the soldiers were hit by the arrows. By now, Thrall had reached the front of the village, and the 300 cavalrymen ferociously broke through some of the village's wooden defenses. After killing their way into the village, the rest of the soldiers also rushed in. Soon the 2 sides clashed. Thrall looked around and did not see any leader, so he led the cavalrymen towards the village hall, while the king's undead cavalry and 300 skeletons held them back. Thrall and the 300 cavalrymen charged into the village, and when they saw a middle-aged man, who seemed to be the leader, they charged over. Regardless of whether or not he surrendered, as long as he did not show any signs of surrendering, Bai Qi gave them the right to kill him. After all, time was of the essence, and Bai Qi's order was to end the battle as quickly as possible so that their soldiers could survive and a large number of people could be saved. Chapter 167. A saber light flashed. Sar rode over on his warhorse and chopped off his head. He then dismounted and raised the head as he shouted in the human language, "Now that your leader is dead, if you resist, I'll kill you." Now that their leader was dead, and facing Sar's ferocious attacks, the the village quickly chose to surrender. Following this, they began to clean up the battlefield, and an adjutant came up to report, "Sir Sar, we've obtained 752 captives. This time, we've taken 752 captives and obtained a large amount of resources and 100,000 copper coins from the village. In terms of battle losses, we've suffered 163 injuries and 7 deaths." Hearing this, a look of delight appeared on Sar's face. With so many captives, he had completed 20% of this month's mission. He then said, "Distribute all of the resources and money we obtained. Quickly call the military doctors to treat those who are injured. At the same time, preserve the corpses of the soldiers who died and bring them back." Now that Sheen was attacking other villages by hook or by crook, the soldiers had to take great risks. As such, Bai Chi gave them all the spoils of war to deal with. At the same time, as long as they brought the captives back, they would be greatly rewarded. Moreover, Qin had implemented a military merit system. So if one person had military merit, the whole family would be happy. It could be said that Qin was filled with battle intent, and he looked like a dangerous terrorist. On the other side, Xiao Jian's team had found an ordinary village with about 1,500 people at the foot of a small hill. After observing for a while, Xiao Jian felt that it would not be easy to deal with so many people. Xiao Jian first ordered his people to capture a captive and then used a steel whip with many iron spikes on it. With a single whip, the captive's skin would split open and blood would flow. In the end, the captive confessed everything under torture, and Xiao Jian obtained the information he wanted. He thought of something and suddenly laughed, but with the scar on his face, he looked incredibly savage. Apart from the regular troops, Xiao Jian had also brought 100 assassins. Most of these assassins were rat folk. Because rat folk's innate talents were agility, they were easily recognized by the profession. By now, the sky had already darkened, and the villagers had finished eating dinner and gone to bed early. The moonlight was a bit hazy, and 100 figures snuck into the village from different directions. This time, the assassin's mission was not to assassinate, but to kidnap. After all, the kidnappers were important figures of the village, and all of them had decent strength. Moreover, they would be protected by many people, and without top-tier assassins, it was possible that they would alert the village. As such, Xiao Jian turned his gaze to the easier targets, which were their families. Most of them were asleep and didn't notice anything at all. However, a series of screams pierced through the night sky. Following that, the person in charge of guarding the area shouted, "There's an enemy. Enemies. There are enemies." These sounds caused the entire village to fall into chaos. Following this, a big man wearing armor furiously came to the entrance of the village and looked at the torches outside. A large number of enemies had completely surrounded them, and most of them were humans, but there were also a few outlanders. What angered the big man the most was that there were more than 20 people in front of him who were tied up with ropes and kneeling on the ground. These people were all from his village, and every one of them was a family member of the village's upper class, including his 5-year-old son. Xiao Jian came to the side of those 20 or so people and gave a terrifying smile as he loudly said, "There's no need to tell me what I want. Hurry up and surrender, and I won't mistreat you. I'll also spare them." Hearing Xiao Jian's words, the big man furiously yelled, "You despicable bastard! If you wanted our village, you could have just attacked us. Why did you have to use such despicable methods? Our little slope village will never surrender to you." "Ha ha!" Xiao Jian loudly laughed and said disdainfully, "All's fair in war. Do you think that all of your enemies are righteous people? I advise you to surrender as soon as possible, or don't blame me for being vicious." Hearing Xiao Jian's words, the villagers looked at the large number of ferocious enemies and their half-kneeling family members and hesitated. A short while later, seeing this, Xiao Jian's gaze became cold, and he gestured to a soldier. The soldier immediately dragged an elderly man in front of Xiao Jian. "Are you sure you don't want to surrender?" Xiao Jian coldly yelled. There was no response from within the village, and Xiao Jian did not hesitate to raise his sword and chop off the elderly man's head. A heart-wrenching cry sounded out from within the village. "Dad!" A young man disregarded everything and rushed out, but he was pulled back by the people beside him. Xiao Jian was no longer as polite as before. He raised his blood-stained sword and pointed at the village as he yelled with killing intent. "I'll give you a bit more time to consider. Next time, I'll kill them all and slaughter your entire village." The big man's face was ashen, and the expressions of the people around him were also incredibly unsightly. They looked at the well-equipped enemies outside the village and their family members who were crying because of the elderly man's death. At the same time, the people within the village started to feel incredibly terrified because the other side had said that they would slaughter their entire village. A while later, seeing that there was still no response, Xiao Jian mounted his warhorse and raised his sword as he yelled, "Prepare." All of the soldiers simultaneously made their preparations, and the archers and ballistae all aimed at the village. Xiao Jian planned to forcefully attack, and he also ordered the 70 or so assassins to take advantage of the chaos to carry out assassinations. Wait, under this massive killing aura, the village's people finally chose to surrender. Even though there were 1,500 people in the village, that was only half of the village's military strength. The rest were women, elderly, and children, while Xiao Jian's soldiers were all well-built and had all sorts of weapons. In that case, they would most likely be slaughtered. Under this pressure, the big man could only sigh and look quite dispirited as he led his people to put down their weapons and walk out of the village. Seeing this, Xiao Jian felt quite relieved and accepted their surrender. The assassins hiding in the village walked out from the shadows, causing the village's people to feel quite scared. Following this, they counted the spoils of war. Xiao Jian's side had not suffered any losses this time, and they had obtained 1,500 captives, countless items, and 160,000 copper coins. Even though their methods were quite despicable and vicious, Bai Qi would allow everything as long as they brought back a large number of captives. The other team's situations were similar to Sa, and Xiao Jian's. Qin had gone to the extreme, and they used all sorts of bloody methods to expand. This caused Qin's development speed to increase by many times, but also gave off an increasingly dense bloody aura. Chapter 168. Within the Roland historical remnant, there were more and more buildings, and they were all well preserved. The buildings were built in the style of the Western Middle Ages, and there were more and more goblins. At the same time, there were two types of goblin soldiers. These two types of goblins looked similar to other goblins, but their skin was different. One type of goblin had azure skin and could use ice magic, while the other type of goblin had red skin and could use fire magic. The auras that these two types of goblins gave off were even more powerful than that of hobgoblins. What's more, there were already 10 goblins in a team. 4 normal goblins, 3 were goblin rock throwers, 2 were hobgoblins, and 1 was either an azure goblin or a red goblin. With all of these types of soldiers working together, they were incredibly powerful, making it much more difficult to deal with them. Luckily, there were many buildings within the Roland historical remnant, which were suitable for hiding. This gave Zhao Fu an opportunity. This time, he would have to rely on his assassin profession. This profession was becoming more and more useful. Zhao Fu began to move out. Zhao Fu hid behind a tall building and threw a pebble. This pebble quickly hit a wall, causing a loud sound to ring out. This time, it wasn't as awkward as last time. The sound quickly attracted the attention of a group of goblins, and they immediately walked over. Zhao Fu snuck into the densely packed buildings and waited for his prey. This group of goblins was evidently much more professional than the goblins outside, and they all walked over cautiously. Zhao Fu also did his best to hide his aura so that he wouldn't be discovered. As the group of goblins slowly came closer, Zhao Fu grasped an opportunity and suddenly appeared while a goblin's gaze was averted. Zhao Fu waved his hand and stabbed out with his rapier, giving off a cold light as he slashed open a goblin's neck. However, at that moment he was discovered. It could be seen that this group of goblins was incredibly vigilant. The group of goblins furiously looked at Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu felt that something was off. He immediately retreated, and the goblins rushed over with killing intent. Zhao Fu used the buildings to jump and dodge, shaking off the goblins in an instant. Assassins, who had high agility, were most suited to this sort of terrain. Though Zhao Fu had disappeared, the goblins still wanted to give chase. However, Zhao Fu turned back and hid in a corner. Suddenly, Zhao Fu once again acted. He rushed out and pierced the goblin's heart with his sword, but a few rocks and an ice ball smashed towards him. Zhao Fu hurriedly crouched down and hid in a nearby building. Bang! 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 A series of explosions sounded out, showing just how ferocious the goblins' attacks were. When they reached Zhao Fu's building, Zhao Fu's figure disappeared. This caused the goblins to feel quite furious, but Zhao Fu once again appeared behind them. At that moment, Zhao Fu used the Sky Demon Sword's power and slashed out, sending out a black sword light that instantly killed 2 normal goblins. A hobgoblin raised his sword and slashed at Zhao Fu, but Zhao Fu dodged to the side and stabbed his sword into the hobgoblin's chest. The Sky Demon Sword immediately turned the hobgoblin into a dried-up corpse, and a few rocks and ice balls flew toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu immediately pulled out his sword and dodged. This time, Zhao Fu's luck was not so good, and he was hit in the waist by a rock. Zhao Fu felt a wave of pain, and a bruise appeared on his waist. The goblins continued to chase after Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu continued to weave through the buildings, shaking them off. He came to a building and took out a large violet bow. It was the Great Spirit Rock Bow. Zhao Fu's archery skills were quite ordinary, and he had not practiced much. He had only used a refined martial soul to learn archery. Now, there were only 5 goblins left, and the only one that Zhao Fu was worried about was the blue goblin. The ice balls in its hands were simply too powerful, and just one of them could freeze an entire wall. Moreover, its casting speed was incredibly fast. Zhao Fu drew the bow. With his current strength, he could not use the bow's most powerful skills, but he could still use the basic archery skills. Zhao Fu fully drew the bow, and an arrow shot out. It immediately turned into a violet ray of light and flashed through the air, piercing into the blue goblin's body. Chi! The arrow pierced through its chest, and the blue goblin looked quite confused. However, it still coughed up a mouthful of blood and died. Zhao Fu had used the bow's violet arrow, and he had instantly killed the blue goblin. Seeing that the blue goblin had died, the other 4 goblins immediately turned to run. Zhao Fu reappeared and equipped the Sky Demon Sword, and the remaining 3 goblin rock throwers once again threw rocks at Zhao Fu. These rocks were quite powerful, and they tore through the air as they flew toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu had already suffered at their hands once, and Zhao Fu dodged as he had the 3 flower spirits use vines to tie up the 3 goblin rock throwers. Following this, Zhao Fu used the Sky Demon Sword to deal with another hobgoblin, easily dealing with it in a few attacks. Zhao Fu then walked over and dealt with the 3 goblin rock throwers. In the end, the entire group of goblins was dealt with by Zhao Fu. It could be said that dealing with them was quite troublesome, but Zhao Fu only had this much power, and there was nothing he could do about it. After all, Zhao Fu missed the feeling of being so powerful. Following this, the goblin's flesh was devoured by the Sky Demon Sword, and Zhao Fu started to collect the spoils of war. Ordinary goblins dropped command medallion shards, hobgoblins dropped sword essences, and the blue goblin dropped a card. This card gave off an ice attribute aura, and it felt like ice in Zhao Fu's hand. On the front of the card was a blue goblin, and on the back was a pentagram. Zhao Fu looked at the card stats. Goblin Ice Strengthening, a type of enchantment card that can enchant a type of equipment with ice magic. Enchantment card? After thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided to use it on the Sky Demon Sword. However, he found that the item's grade was too high, and he was unable to enchant it. As such, Zhao Fu could only take out a blue grade sword and enchant it. The enchantment card turned into an icy mist and entered Zhao Fu's sword. The blue-grade sword went through some changes, and a layer of ice covered the sword. Zhao Fu looked at the sword's stats. Ice, Azure Steel Sword. Grade, Blue, Stats, Strength +1, Description, a sword that has been enchanted with ice. It has ice attribute attacks, and the wielder of this sword will have a certain amount of resistance to ice. This enchantment card effects were most likely to increase the wielder's damage and resistance. Chapter 169. After looking at the effects of the enchantment cards, Zhao Fu put them into his king's ring. At that moment, Rose rubbed her stomach and said, "Zhao, I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry." Zhao Fu looked up and saw that it was getting late, so he decided to leave the Roland historical remnant. He went to an empty area outside and started a bonfire. Following this, Zhao Fu took out 3 black forest fruits and gave them to the 3 flower spirits to eat while he walked around and caught a type of chicken. This chicken was a bit bigger than a rooster and had a lot of feathers. However, they weren't very pretty and looked very mixed. Zhao Fu looked at it and found that it was called a chicken. He had heard from the goblins that it was quite delicious, so Zhao Fu caught it and killed it, plucked its feathers, and roasted it. Soon, the chicken was cooked, and Zhao Fu tasted it. He found that it tasted quite good. The chicken was incredibly fragrant and tender, and just a single bite would make one feel as if they were feasting. However, only Zhao Fu could eat this chicken, as the 3 flower spirits were vegetarians. After eating the entire chicken, Zhao Fu's stomach was quite full. Following this, Zhao Fu felt that it was time to leave the heaven-awakened world and return to the real world. After telling Rose and the others about this, Zhao Fu decided to leave the heaven-awakened world. After returning to the real world, Zhao Fu asked his bodyguard to bring some food back. He opened the forum and looked at it, feeling quite shocked. He had never thought that he would cause so much trouble. The incident at Heavenstone City had shaken the world, and it had been recorded by the School of Historians and the School of Novels. The School of Historians was also known as historiographers. They didn't care about politics or the people's lives, and they only wrote history and recorded events from different eras. The School of Novelists had already appeared in the pre-Qin period. For example, they recorded all kinds of stories that had been passed down and compiled them into books. They could also write their own stories. However, although the School of Novelists was a school of their own, they were regarded as unorthodox. Hence, there was the saying of 9 schools of 10 schools. However, novelists were not well regarded in ancient times and could not be considered a school of thought. But now, they were flourishing and had developed many different schools of thought. There were countless books among them, and they had even started the age of web literature. The modern era could be said to be the golden age of novelist development. They recorded this matter in order to write history. After all, this matter was simply too shocking, and it was the first time a player had fought against the system main city's faction. This was something that had to be recorded in history. There were also some who wrote stories based on this theme. Zhao Fu didn't care about this. What made Zhao Fu concerned was that they had actually managed to deduce his identity. Moreover, they had guessed his approximate location. This caused Zhao Fu to sigh. Back then, if he had just endured it, things would have been much simpler. However, at the bottom of his heart, he felt that the dignity of a king could not be challenged. Moreover, Zhao Fu had endured and retreated. Everyone had a temper, and even a rabbit would bite when it was cornered. These 2 emotions caused Zhao Fu's heart to feel quite complicated. However, this was how things were, and there was nothing he could do to change it. Although there were disadvantages to this matter, there were also advantages. The disadvantage was that after he was exposed, countless large families would be wary of this place, and they might set up obstacles to restrict Qin's development. This would indeed cause a lot of trouble for Qin. The advantage was that after he was exposed, he would not be as much of a threat, and he would not cause public anger. At the same time, he could use East Green as a cover to draw the attention of many factions while secretly developing in the Forest of Horrors. After thinking about this matter wasn't as serious anymore. Zhao Fu then looked at another matter. which made Zhao Fu feel quite surprised. Qin's legatee has appeared and announced that he has returned to the Ying family. What's going on? Didn't he return to the Ying family a long time ago? Why did he suddenly come out and announce his return? Zhao Fu looked quite confused as he opened the post and found that it was a fake. What's going on? After looking through the post, Zhao Fu found that this was all caused by the Ying family. Why did the Ying family do this? Zhao Fu thought about it and found that the Ying family seemed to want to help him. Was it because they had found their conscience? Or was it because of crocodile tears? Zhao Fu didn't quite understand what the Ying family was trying to do. However, it wasn't a bad thing that a fake had appeared. He could be used as a meat shield. Moreover, in order to welcome Great Qin's legatee back, the Ying family held a massive welcoming party and invited many famous people from all over the world. However, none of the people invited were from the Ying family's enemies, which made the Xia, Shang, and Zhou families feel quite displeased. This banquet attracted countless people's gazes, and most people wanted to see what this mysterious legatee Qin looked like. However, as ordinary people, no matter how hard they tried, they wouldn't be able to get into this banquet. As such, they vented their frustrations on the forums. Fudge! Why didn't the Ying family do a live broadcast of such a big event? Even though commoners like us can't get into such a high-class banquet, we can still feast our eyes on it. I think I know what legatee Qin looks like. I wonder if he's handsome or not. I really want to know. I heard that Su Yiyin, who has a crush on legatee Qin, was also invited. Sigh, I don't have many wishes in my life. I just want to see legatee Qin once. Legatee Qin has brought honor to our country. So many leaders, celebrities, and leaders want to see him. If I can see him, I'll ask him to sign a dozen autographs for me. I won't sell it for less than 1 million yuan. The ultimate move to get rich, huh? I also want to see legatee Qin. I dreamed of him yesterday. He's super handsome, and he's gentle and considerate to me. I feel like he's my true love, my Prince Charming. Maybe they were husband and wife in our previous lives. Shyness, I'm just a passerby. Even though I don't know why legatee Qin is so popular, I also want to see him since so many people want to see him. Big brother, who can go? Bring me along. I'm in Triple X City. I'm begging you. Zhao Fu looked at the date of the banquet. It was today, and Zhao Fu didn't receive any invitation. After all, how could a collateral disciple like him be qualified to attend such a high-class banquet? Chapter 170. Following this, the bodyguard quickly brought back some food. It was a portion of stir-fried pork with green peppers and a bowl of white rice. Zhao Fu quickly finished it in a few bites, filling his rumbling stomach before preparing to enter the heaven-awakened world. At that moment, Wu Qingyang walked in with a few female bodyguards. Seeing that Zhao Fu had just finished eating, Wu Qingyang smiled and said, "Zhao Fu, let's go. I'll take you to see the world." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. Take me see the world? Looking at Wu Qingyang, who was wearing a formal dress, Zhao Fu thought about the banquet and immediately understood what she meant. Zhao Fu shook his head and said, "I think I shouldn't go. That's a banquet for powerful figures like you, and it wouldn't be good for a small figure like me to go." Wu Qingyang giggled and said, "You still care about your status? I really couldn't tell. Today's the banquet for the famous legatee Qin, and you're a member of the Ying family. Don't you want to see him? He might be the future leader of the Ying family, and he's an incredibly powerful figure." Hearing her words, Zhao Fu lightly laughed and said, "Do you really think that he's the real legatee Qin?" Wu Qingyang looked quite surprised, and she walked up to Zhao Fu and looked at Zhao Fu with her beautiful eyes as she asked, "Do you know something?" Wu Qingyang's face was incredibly close to Zhao Fu's, and Zhao Fu felt that his words weren't quite right. Facing Wu Qingyang, who was so close to him, Zhao Fu felt quite awkward, and he turned his head away as he said, "This is too high profile, and it's completely different from the mysterious and low-profile legatee Qin from before. The Ying family's actions seem to be drawing attention to themselves. Indeed, I wasn't wrong about you." Wu Qingyang suddenly smiled and grabbed Zhao Fu's arm. Pulling him up from his chair, she said, "Let's go. I'm also lacking a male companion." Zhao Fu felt quite speechless, and he expressed that he really didn't want to go. After all, the banquet was just an act. However, despite this, Zhao Fu was still dragged over by Wu Qingyang. By the time they arrived at the banquet, there were already many upper-class people dressed in luxurious clothes. Wu Qingyang, who was dressed in a red gown and gave off a trace of domineeringness, walked in with Zhao Fu's arm. Immediately, this attracted the gazes of many people. Beside Wu Qingyang was the handsome and ordinary-looking Zhao Fu. Under Wu Qingyang's powerful aura, he seemed especially weak. There was nothing he could do about it. Zhao Fu just wanted to keep a low profile and not attract too much attention. However, under Wu Qingyang's powerful aura, he became like this. This scene was quite similar to a beautiful flower being stuck in a pile of cow dung, or a large cabbage being eaten by a pig. Countless handsome men and scholars expressed their pity. Some of the people who recognized Wu Qingyang looked at Zhao Fu and looked quite surprised. They went up and greeted Wu Qingyang before turning to look at Zhao Fu and asking in a friendly manner, "May I ask who this is?" Because Zhao Fu's face was quite unfamiliar to them. For Wu Qingyang to treat him like this, they guessed that he was most likely the young master of a large family. Before Wu Qingyang could reply, one of the Ying family's disciples whispered in their ears. After hearing that Zhao Fu was just an ordinary collateral family disciple, they immediately lost interest, and their attitudes greatly changed. However, even though they didn't give Zhao Fu face, they still had to give Wu Qingyang face. As such, they didn't say anything to mock him, but they couldn't hide the disdain they felt toward a minor figure like Zhao Fu. This caused Wu Qingyang to frown, but since they had already given her face, Wu Qingyang didn't say anything else. Afterwards, they found an excuse and left. At that moment, Wu Qingyang turned to look at Zhao Fu, who had a calm expression on his face, and asked in confusion, "Zhao Fu, why aren't you angry?" Zhao Fu suddenly smiled and looked at her as he replied, "Why should I be angry? Just because a few people look down on me? With my current status, it's only natural that they look down on me." Wu Qingyang didn't know how to respond to Zhao Fu's words, but she smiled and said, "Don't you want to change your status? Even though the Ying family isn't willing to support you, we can give you some resources to help you establish your own faction. Perhaps you might even be able to become a marquis. There's no need for that. I can do it myself." Zhao Fu suddenly gave off an incredibly calm and indescribable aura as he said, "Become a marquis? How could that be his goal? Zhao Fu wants to rule over the world." This aura that Zhao Fu suddenly gave off caused Wu Qingyang's heart to tremble. However, Wu Qingyang's expression immediately became serious as she stared at Zhao Fu and said, "Zhao Fu, you haven't been hiding something from me, right?" Zhao Fu felt quite surprised, but he didn't feel like he had said anything wrong. However, this woman's intuition was quite powerful, so he tried to hide the truth as he said, "Nothing, right? Even if there's something, it's just a small matter to you. Is that so?" Wu Qingyang looked at Zhao Fu suspiciously, evidently not believing him. Zhao Fu nodded seriously, but Wu Qingyang still didn't believe him. Just as she was about to say something, a few cries sounded out from the door, attracting many people's gazes. Zhao Fu turned and saw a peerlessly beautiful woman walk in. She had a graceful figure and wore a white dress. Her skin was as white as snow, and her face was flawless. Her jet black hair fell to her shoulders, and she gave off a breathtakingly beautiful aura. As soon as she appeared, she seemed to shine with light, and she immediately became the center of attention. Zhao Fu heard the voices around him and realized who this woman was. She was the top-tier celebrity, Su Yuyan. This didn't seem to be a big deal, so Zhao Fu looked away. "Not bad. You only stared at such a beautiful celebrity for 3 seconds?" Wu Qingyang suddenly said. Zhao Fu rolled his eyes at Wu Qingyang and said, "I'm not the kind of person to judge a book by its cover, and I'm not too interested in that. Everyone has their own pursuits, so don't judge others by your standards. Moreover, your beauty isn't inferior to hers at all." After hearing this, a trace of smile appeared on Wu Qingyang's face, and she looked at Zhao Fu as she said, I'm starting to value you more and more." Facing Wu Qingyang's gaze, Zhao Fu felt quite awkward, and he didn't know how to respond. At that moment, the entrance once again became lively. A decent-looking young man, accompanied by a few elderly people, slowly walked into the hall. The main character of this banquet had arrived. Chapter 171. As he walked in step by step, countless people in the surroundings automatically surrounded him with kind smiles on their faces, expressing their goodwill. Li Wu entered the venue like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon. Facing these upper-class people, who he had to look up to in the past, now treated him with respect and flattery. As an ordinary person, Li Wu felt incredibly happy and carefree. However, on the surface, Li Wu pretended to be humble and courteous. He knew that he was just a fake that the Ying family had found, and they were flattering him because of his identity as Qin's imperial prince, not because of him. What he needed to do now was to play the part of Qin's imperial prince just like the Ying family wanted him to do. He would use them to become more powerful and make these upper-class nobles truly submit to him. After coming to the center of the hall, Li Wu walked up to the stage as he had planned and gave a confident smile as he said, "Welcome, everyone, to my banquet. Today is the day that I officially return to the Ying family, and it is also the day that the Ying family will rise up. The Qin Empire will be restored, and we, the Qin Empire, will definitely return to its former glory. Those who are friends of Qin will receive countless benefits, but those who are enemies of Qin will definitely be reduced to ashes." After Li Wu finished speaking, a wave of raucous applause sounded out from below the stage. No one cared if they understood what Li Wu had said or not, because they understood how important Qin's imperial prince was. Once they flattered him, not only would it benefit them personally, but it would also benefit the entire family. Zhao Fu understood what Li Wu meant. He wanted to rope in some factions, and he also wanted to dispel any anti-Qin sentiment. He wanted to show how powerful he was and show that the Qin Empire would definitely be restored. At the same time, he also wanted to express his goodwill. Following this, Li Wu officially changed his name and returned to the Ying family, becoming Ying Wu. Zhao Fu would not change his surname, and he would always follow his mother's surname, Zhao. This was something that he could not change. After speaking, Ying Wu slowly descended from the stage, and the people in the surroundings immediately crowded around him, wanting to deepen their friendship with Great Qin's legatee and become closer to him. "Do you want to go over?" A trace of a smile appeared on Wu Qingyang's face as she looked at Ying Wu with her beautiful eyes. Hearing this, Zhao Fu thought for a moment. He didn't want to get involved in this mess, so he shook his head and refused. When she saw this, Wu Qingyang let go of Zhao Fu's hand and said, "Then I'll go take a look at Imperial Prince Qin. Wait for me here, and don't run away like you did last time." Zhao Fu really did have this kind of thought because this kind of place was really not suitable for him. It was a bit uncomfortable and boring stay here, so he wanted to take this opportunity to leave. However, Zhao Fu had never thought that Wu Qingyang would be able to see through him, so he could only nod and agree. He would not leave and would wait for her to return. At this moment, there was already a woman next to Ying Wu, who completely attracted his attention. Without a doubt, this woman was Su Yuyan. Of course, Ying Wu knew who this superstar was. In the past, he had fantasized about her many times. Su Yuyan was undoubtedly the dream lover of countless men. Back when Ying Wu had wanted to meet this superstar, it had been almost impossible. He had only been able to meet her in his dreams. But now, the other party was happily taking the initiative to chat with him. This really felt like a dream come true. It felt a little surreal. Su Yuyan was already incredibly beautiful on television, and Ying Wu had never thought that she would be even more beautiful and enchanting when he saw her in person. Ying Wu's heart could not help but start to thump, and he felt that he had fallen in love with her. Indeed, if an ordinary man could marry her, he would be satisfied for the rest of his life. At that moment, Ying Wu felt an indescribable joy in his heart, and he felt as if he was in heaven. "Hello." Suddenly, a moving voice sounded out from beside him. Ying Wu turned and saw a woman wearing a red dress. She was extremely beautiful, and she was not inferior to Su Yuyin. However, the aura she gave off was different from Su Yuyin's pure beauty, and she gave off a feeling that any man would go crazy to conquer her. Qin's legatee's identity was quite good. He had instantly gotten to know so many devastatingly beautiful women, and all of them had taken the initiative. However, he had seen this woman standing next to a man, and she was holding that man's arm, making him feel quite intimate. Yingwu nodded and nodded before looking at Zhao Fu in the distance. Zhao Fu's delicate and handsome face and ordinary aura made him seem like a minor figure. As a man, Yingwu couldn't understand how he had managed to gain the favor of such a beautiful woman. As a man, Yingwu felt a bit jealous. Zhao Fu sensed Yingwu's gaze and inwardly laughed, but on the surface, he calmly stood there, waiting for Wu Qingyang to speak. On the other side, Wu Qingyang's arrival caused Su Yuyin to slightly frown. She felt a deep sense of threat from Wu Qingyang, and this was a woman's intuition. However, after a short conversation between the three of them, there wasn't too much tension. Their tones were very good, and they seemed to be getting along very well. It was as if the three of them understood something. Until the end of the conversation, each of them maintained a good image. Following this, Wu Qingyang returned to Zhao Fu's side and apologetically smiled as she said, "Sorry for waiting for a long time." Zhao Fu did not mind and shook his head, indicating that it was fine. "Let's go then. I know you don't want to stay here," Wu Qingyang said as she led Zhao Fu away. On the way, Wu Qingyang's expression darkened, and she sighed as she said to Zhao Fu, "Aren't you interested in my gains this time?" Zhao Fu stared for a moment before replying, "I'm a bit interested. Tell me." Wu Qingyang breathed out and said, "As expected, that wasn't the real legatee Qin. Even though his temperament wasn't bad, he was still far from the real legatee Qin." "Oh," Zhao Fu calmly replied. Looking at Wu Qingyang's serious expression, he asked, "Why do you care about that legatee Qin?" Wu Qingyang rolled her eyes at Zhao Fu as she said, "You're the only one who doesn't know how dangerous the real legatee Qin is, as well as how terrifying he is. That guy still refuses to show himself, and he's like an evil dragon in the endless darkness. Who knows what he'll do next? Is he really that terrifying?" Zhao Fu suddenly smiled as he asked. Chapter 172. Seeing how serious Wu Qingyang looked, Zhao Fu couldn't help but smile and nod, indicating that he knew how terrifying that Emperor Qin was. Seeing Zhao Fu act like this, Wu Qingyang felt quite angry, and she patted Zhao Fu's arm as she said, "I'm being serious here. Don't be traumatized by meeting him. The true Emperor Qin is incredibly terrifying, and I've even experienced that level of terror before. Let me give you a reminder. Why are you acting so frivolously?" Hearing this, Zhao Fu stopped laughing and nodded, saying that he understood. "But if I'm afraid of myself, would I be traumatized by it? Also, when did Wu Qingyang feel how terrifying I was? Could it be that domineering dragon's roar?" Seeing this, Wu Qingyang lightly harumphed. Seeing that they were about to reach Zhao Fu's residence, Wu Qingyang said, "Zhao Fu, do you really not want my help? With just your strength, it'll be very difficult for you to establish a large faction." Zhao Fu lightly nodded and said, "I'll take care of everything. However, I still have to thank you, Qingyang." Wu Qingyang felt quite surprised. This was the first time she had heard Zhao Fu call her by her name. However, she still looked at Zhao Fu seriously and said, "Zhao Fu, if you need anything, just tell me. I'll do my best to help you. From the first time I met you, I knew that you were destined to have an extraordinary life, and you definitely wouldn't spend the rest of your life with an ordinary person. Since I value you so highly, I've already made you mine. Even though it doesn't matter if you're willing or not, I'll make you submit to me. In the future, I'll need your help." Hearing Wu Qingyang's words, Zhao Fu felt quite startled. He simply couldn't understand why Wu Qingyang valued him so highly. After all, he was just a nobody in the real world. So Zhao Fu wanted to tell Wu Qingyang that she was overestimating him. However, before Zhao Fu could say anything, Wu Qingyang saw through his intentions and spoke first, saying, I know what you want to say, but the Wu family is the best at judging men. After all, we have Phoenix Dragon constitutions, and you're someone that I've taken a fancy to. I'm sure you'll have great accomplishments and won't disappoint me. After hearing Wu Qingyang's words, Zhao Fu felt quite speechless towards her domineering attitude. In the real world, he was still too weak, so of course Zhao Fu wouldn't lower himself to her. After all, he was the master of Qin City. However, Zhao Fu didn't have any ill intentions towards Wu Qingyang, as she had always wanted to help him. Even though she was helping herself, it wasn't enough to make Zhao Fu feel any ill will towards her. Now that Wu Qingyang had made things clear, Wu Qingyang smiled and said, Zhao Fu, I'll give you some time to develop. I will give you some time to develop, but after this time, I will personally intervene. Zhao Fu didn't have any other choice, so he could only sigh and temporarily compromise, saying, All right, don't be so unwilling. Do you know how many men want to be like you, but they don't even have the chance? Wu Qingyang lightly hugged Zhao Fu's arm as she lightly smiled. However, in the next moment, she brought her nose close to Zhao Fu and sniffed as she asked curiously, Zhao Fu, I've always wanted to ask you, what have you been doing in the heaven-awakened world for so long? I can feel that you're becoming more and more attracted to my constitution. These words caused Zhao Fu to feel quite startled, as if Xianru had reminded him that he couldn't hide his fate in the real world. Zhao Fu felt that Wu Qingyang's constitution was related to fate, and he decided to ask Xianru about the Phoenix Dragon constitution after he returned to the heaven-awakened world. Right now, Zhao Fu could only pull his hand out of Wu Qingyang's embrace, find an excuse, and return to his room. Elsewhere, Su Yiyin and Ying Wu had finished their conversation, and they got into a luxurious car. At that moment, a phone call arrived, and Su Yiyin picked it up and said earnestly, Big sis, this Qin City's legatee is indeed a fake. This Qin's legatee is indeed a fake, and he's just a shield for the Ying family. However, he doesn't want to be inferior to the Ying family, so he has some value. A mature voice sounded out from the other side of the phone, saying, I got it. Also, I'll leave the Heaven Awakened World Forum in the 3 provinces to you. The hidden families there seem to be coming out soon, so keep an eye out for them. Yes, I understand. Thank you, big sis, Su Yiyin said with a delighted expression. Back at Zhao Fu's side, Zhao Fu returned to his room. He didn't waste any time in the real world, and he once again grabbed the energy stone and entered the Heaven Awakened World. After entering the Heaven Awakened World, Zhao Fu looked at the 3 flower spirits, who had been waiting for a long time, and he said apologetically, I'm sorry for making you 3 wait for so long. Oof. Rose crossed her arms and lightly harumphed as she said angrily, Zhao, you said you'd be here soon. We've been waiting for you for so long, and I thought you'd forgotten about us. Rose, Zhao, you might have something to do, Bai said before Zhao Fu could explain. Rose's personality was quite understanding. Peachy, whose face was quite red, nodded. Rose's personality was quite simple, and after hearing them say this, she didn't feel angry anymore. She smiled and said, All right, Zhao, I won't be angry at you anymore. Zhao Fu didn't feel angry anymore. Seeing how simple Rose was, Zhao Fu couldn't help but smile, and he took out 3 spirit fruits as a small compensation. Next, they continued to kill goblins in the Roland historical remnant. Zhao Fu used the same old method, which was to use his voice to attract the attention of a group of goblins. With his previous experience, Zhao Fu weaved through the buildings and slowly killed a group of goblins. Following this, he easily dealt with the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th groups. Zhao Fu had thought that it would be so easy to kill all of the goblins, but he hadn't expected the 5th group to suddenly appear. Zhao Fu suddenly appeared from the side and instantly killed 3 goblins. However, at that moment, one of the goblins took out a black horn and blew it. This horn was quite special, and it didn't make a very loud sound. However, all of the goblins could hear it and would be attracted over. The instant the horn was blown, countless goblins rushed over, and the sound was quite loud. Countless goblins rushed over, causing Zhao Fu's hairs to stand on end. He unhesitatingly chose to run. The situation had completely changed. The goblins madly chased after Zhao Fu, and in the end, Zhao Fu used his agility to barely escape from the historical remnant. Only after half a day did Zhao Fu dare to enter the historical remnant again. However, most of the goblins had formed groups of 20 or so goblins, and they were even more vigilant. It would be quite difficult for him to use his assassin profession to assassinate them. Chapter 173. Zhao Fu turned his gaze to the small groups of goblins at the edge of the historical remnant and started to move. There were only 10 of them, and because they were at the edge of the historical remnant, they weren't very vigilant. Zhao Fu lowered his body and used the buildings to sneak over. The goblins didn't notice Zhao Fu at all, and they were still chatting with each other. Zhao Fu took out the Sky Demon's sword and used his full strength from the start. He jumped down from a building and quickly dealt with a few ordinary goblins. With Zhao Fu's current strength, he was unable to take on the remaining goblins, so he could only continue to use the buildings to dodge. The group of goblins furiously chased after Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu used this opportunity to circle around the buildings and deal with the goblin rock throwers. In the end, there was only one red goblin and 2 hobgoblins left, and Zhao Fu set up a trap for them, causing them to be bound by 3 green vines. At that moment, Zhao Fu smiled as he walked out from a dark corner. The 3 goblins were struggling on the ground, furiously glaring at Zhao Fu. If it wasn't for the vines blocking their mouths, they would most likely have started cursing at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu walked over and used the Sky Demon's sword to cut open one of the vines blocking the goblins' mouths. As soon as the goblin was able to speak, it cursed, "Despicable human! You've killed so many of our goblins. I won't let you off. If you let me go, I'll definitely kill you." When he heard this, Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh. Those words were simply too stupid. Who would let you go after capturing you? Moreover, they would stupidly challenge you to a duel. Zhao Fu said in the goblin language, "Now that you've been captured by me, you only have 2 choices: submit to me or die." Hearing Zhao Fu speak in the goblin language, the goblins stared for a moment before yelling, "I won't submit to you. Kill us if you dare." "Huh, you got guts." Zhao Fu took out a whip and whipped it on the goblin's body. He wanted to use pain to force them to surrender, but what Zhao Fu didn't expect was that the goblins refused to surrender and were quite stubborn. After tens of lashes, the goblins were covered with wounds, but the goblins refused to surrender. The 3 flower spirits could not bear to watch this anymore and said, "Zhao, don't be afraid. Don't abuse them like this. They look so pitiful." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt that this method was ineffective. The goblins in the historical remnant were indeed different from the goblins outside. If they were outside, they would have long since surrendered. Zhao Fu had no choice but to use the life and death contract that he had bought before to force them to submit. The life and death contract was a slave contract. The 3 of them had given their lives to him, and he could do whatever he wanted with them. Even if the 3 of them died, it wouldn't affect Zhao Fu much. Now, Zhao Fu was only forcing them to submit. After using the life and death contract, the paper turned into motes of light and entered the 3 goblins' bodies. Even though they looked quite unwilling, they still submitted in the end. Of course, the goblins' loyalty wasn't very high, but they would at least listen to Zhao Fu's orders. Zhao Fu had the 3 flower spirits release them, and after regaining their freedom, the 3 goblins knelt on the ground and cried out, "Sir." Zhao Fu smiled. He had achieved his goal. He took out some healing medicine and gave them to the goblins. He also took out 2 silver grade swords and a silver grade magic staff and gave them to the goblins. These silver grade equipment were all from Gu Feng's ring, and there were roughly a few hundred of them. This wasn't too surprising, as most elite soldiers in system main cities already had full sets of silver grade equipment. As one of the 3 great generals, Gu Feng definitely didn't lack silver grade equipment. The 3 goblins rubbed the medicine on their bodies as they happily held the equipment, and their loyalty towards Zhao Fu greatly increased. The three of them only had some superficial wounds, which weren't too big of a deal. After subduing these 3 goblins, Zhao Fu now had 3 helpers. Even though ordinary goblins and goblin rock throwers were quite strong, Zhao Fu wasn't interested in them. Following this, Zhao Fu allowed them to rest for a while before taking them to another group of 10 people. With the 3 goblins joining in, things became much simpler. At first, Zhao Fu rushed out and killed a few goblins by surprise, while the 3 goblins who had submitted rushed out from the other side. The remaining goblins split up, and the 3 goblins who had submitted to Zhao Fu held back the goblins on the other side, while Zhao Fu quickly dealt with the goblins on the other side. In the end, Zhao Fu's group surrounded the remaining blue goblin and 2 hobgoblins. While Zhao Fu wasn't paying attention, 3 green vines shot out from the ground and wrapped around the 3 goblins, forcing them to submit. However, this time, the 3 goblins' aggro shifted from Zhao Fu to the 3 goblins who had submitted, and they cursed at Zhao Fu for being traitors. Following this, Zhao Fu used his contract to force them to submit, and he continued to look for other weaker groups. After repeating this method, Zhao Fu finally expanded his group to 15 people. 2 of them were blue goblins, 3 were red goblins, and 15 were hobgoblins. With this number of soldiers, Zhao Fu wasn't afraid at all. After luring out a group of 20 goblins, he directly attacked without any tricks. The blue and red goblins threw fireballs and ice balls at the enemy goblin rock throwers and blue and red goblins, while the hobgoblins rushed over with their weapons. Zhao Fu also held the Sky Demon Sword and used the Sky Demon's power to send countless traces of Sky Demon Chi into his body, and Zhao Fu rushed into the fray. 3 goblins swung their wooden clubs at Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu slashed out with his sword, sending their wooden clubs flying. Zhao Fu then slashed out with his sword, sending out a black sword light that hit the 3 goblins' chests. A terrifying gash appeared on their chests, and blood flowed out as they fell to the ground and died. Bang! A goblin rock thrower threw a rock at Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu dodged to the side before rushing at the goblin rock thrower and started a fight. The battle concluded very quickly, and it wasn't just because of Zhao Fu. It was because of the other 15 goblins. There were only 1 blue goblin, 1 red goblin, and 4 hobgoblins. The rest were all normal goblins and goblin rock throwers. On the other hand, Zhao Fu's side was filled with powerful goblins, and there wasn't a single one of them. As such, Zhao Fu was able to easily deal with this group of goblins. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.